Hello, guys, and welcome to week 3 of the King's Cup tournament. Match 1, we will be seeing Berto Burrito versus Killswitch in their final round-robin game, and to help me with the casting, we have back Bear Gardner. So, Bear, introduce yourself once again for the people.
Hey folks, as usual, I am still at Bear_Gardner. Some of you will know me, some of you will not. I am marginally more organised, so you can go check the Twitch chat for links to come find me. I'm a content creator, caster now, I guess. I love this game. I love talking about the technical side of it and decks, and you'll find on my YouTube like guides for new players, but also stuff that is aimed at kind of deck techs and stuff for more experienced players, plus some game theory stuff, which kind of goes down well with a smaller but more attentive group of people. And I really need to get back to doing more of, if I'm honest. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I'm just me. I'm a random Brit that just loiters in J King's back room until he lets me on a cast.
Alrighty, well, today is the final week of the round-robin stage, and this is the most important week because everybody so far has been very neck and neck. So obviously you can see the leaderboard in front of you, and the important number to be looking at here is the second column from the left, the score column, because that is how we are determining who the top 2 players are who advance into the finals. And right now it looks like there's a bit of a big gap between last place and first place with Baron and Berto, a 6-point difference. But how this is being calculated is it is game wins plus match wins subtracted by game losses. So it is the game win-loss difference within an extra point for actually winning your set. So you're capable of pretty big swings. You're capable of up to 5 points in a single week. So that means Berto could actually shoot up to 3 if he sweeps Killswitch here, and Baron is capable of losing up to 4 points on a loss if he gets sweep. So Baron is capable of dropping to 0. So everybody is absolutely still in this. This is everyone's game, and what's really exciting about today is we have Killswitch versus Berto Burrito, and both of them are in a must-win position. If either loses this game, they will be hit by a -1, and they will be mathematically eliminated from the tournament. So if both players are looking for a win, and what's exciting is if either player wins, they are both in a very good position to advance into the finals. So everything really is up to grabs at the moment. And yeah, I mean, we've seen some very awesome games from both of these players, from all of our players so far. And now we're sort of culminating in the final week. And to go over the format for such an important week is going to be none other than the even and odds format, meaning every single deck must contain either exclusively even cost cards or exclusively odd cost cards, and these are the credit costs printed on the card in your collection screen. So you can run cards that reduce the cost of other things. That's perfectly fine. You can run cards that develop into other cost cards. That's perfectly fine. But in your collection screen, it needs to show all even cost or all odd cost cards on top of the additional deck building rules, which is all cards allowed, including reserved cards, so they're grabbing cards from all over the card pool, and cards are not allowed in multiple decks, meaning if you run 35T in one deck, you're not allowed running 35T in any of your 4 other decks, because you're bringing 5 decks to this event. And all 5 decks have to meet this restriction. So you're allowed multiple nations, and even odds is actually a very interesting thing for this restriction, is in a certain way it makes it easier to fit the restriction of no extra cards, because you can just run an even Germany deck and run all of the good even cost German cards, and then you can run an odd Germany deck, and now you don't have to worry about fitting in the really good cards and finding out how to balance them between your 2 decks. You're already forced to balance them based on if they're even or odd cost. And we have seen the players who have submitted their deck list. They have submitted quite a few decks of the same nation. So there's actually going to be a lot of repeats, more than any other week here. So that's quite exciting. And if you want to take a look at the deck lists, we will be breaking down the deck lists that are going to be being played today in a little bit. But if you want to take a look at all of the deck lists, !deck lists in the chat, and that will provide you a link where you can look at all 20 deck lists for this week, or the 20 deck lists from the previous 2 weeks, and you can copy them, bring them, import them into your own game, look at them, play them in casual, play them on ranked if you're feeling brave. Um, and the other command we have here today is !giveaway. So the giveaway should be running. So type !giveaway in Twitch chat, and you will enter your name into the giveaway, which we will be pulling as we go through the stream between matches, or between games as we progress. And the giveaways we have are 150 gold or 300 gold giveaways. So you could spend those on anything. So if you play cards, period, this is a good giveaway for you to win. So !giveaway to get into it. Bear, do you have anything to say about the even odds format? I know you have been playing some of these decks.
I mean, there's so much to say, but I'm going to keep it as brief as I can because we're going to go into the decks in a bit. But this format is more mind-bending than you'd think because there are certain archetypes that you just naturally lean into. A great example of this is good old-fashioned US frontline. And you look at it and you think, all right, so can I build a frontline deck? And then you suddenly realize, but frontline wants 1-drops, but frontline needs draw, and Sherman's an even cost. Oh, okay then. So that's, and then you go to different things. And honestly, if you look at your decks, like any of you guys who are kind of watching this, if you take a look at all of your deck lists and see how many of them do you think would really be able to be adjusted and eat this as a restriction. But the other beautiful thing about this is that it means we get to see a lot of very interesting synergies because these are top players. These players really understand how to build decks, and I'm not going to lie, some of these decks are very fiddly to get used to. I have indeed played all of the decks that are here yesterday, and I've played all of the ones for tomorrow, just in case. And it broke my brain, because they are actually a lot more, well, some of them are a lot more complicated than you'd expect them to be, because you really have to look for synergies that you wouldn't normally find. Plus, because J. King decided to allow rotated cards, there's a whole new level of, actually in at least one case, what I consider to be truly, truly egregious power capability in some of the combos in this deck, in these decks, if you can pull them off. So yeah, I'm super excited, but I think the big thing that I'm interested to see is whether we're going to continue our rolling run of 7-game sets, because we haven't had anything else so far.
Yeah, and I think this is a format that might lend itself more to 7 games, just because I feel like the power level might be a bit all over the place with this one, just because the restriction is a bit stronger than we've had in the previous weeks on how you build decks, and it's really easy to think of some even or odd cost decks if you sort of spend a little bit of time thinking about it. You just think, well, you know, we've seen decks that had like 32 1-cost cards before, so just put those 32 1-cost cards and then put the good 3-cost cards and then put in Sheedan into a Jagro deck, and that's an odd Jagro deck. Well, that's good, but what are you doing for your other 4 decks? So I think we might see a bit more power level difference between the decks here, which would lend itself towards a closer game as the higher power level decks get wins. But that's just, I mean, I have not played this format before, so honestly, I don't know. We'll see if the players have figured out really powerful ways to build control decks while not having access to half of the cards that you would normally have access to when you're building a control deck. And then just stylistically between evens and odds, there's some really big differences of what you can do. So odd, obviously you get to play 1-cost cards, which is really, really good for aggressive decks. Aggressive decks love to play 1-cost cards, but with even, you get access to War Machine, and I feel like that's a very crucial card, because that's going to help your curve so well if you're an even cost deck. It means you can't run anything on 3, so you run War Machines on 2, and then you run your 4-drops and your 6-drops, and if you hit War Machine on 2, you get to play a 4-drop on 3, and if your opponent's playing 1-drop into 1-drop into 1-drop, if your 4-drop has a guard on it, you can very easily get to places. There's other important even cost cards like Scorched Earth, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of, that are very, very good stall tools. So yeah, there's a lot of going on here, but before we get too deep into the cards and the decks, let's first take a look at the players. So Of course, we have Berto Burrito here. Berto Burrito is the most experienced player here. They have the highest tournament win rate. They have the best tournament results out of the players in this field. However, Berto is also the player who has been struggling the most so far in this event. And struggling might be a bit of a too strong a word because, I mean, they've made it to Game 7 in both of their previous sets and were just not able to get across the line. But again, making it to Game 7 means that they're still 100% in this. If they'd just been swept twice, they would be completely eliminated. But Berto has managed to stay in it despite losing his first two games, and it would be absolutely wild to me if Berto lost all three of his games in this event. So if I'm killswitch and I'm looking at Berto who's lost twice in a row, I'm not thinking like, oh, he's on like a losing streak, like his mental is like he's all up in his head and this is going to be an easier win. I'm looking at Berto's lost twice. He is due his win, and I'm the one in his crosshairs. So I'd be quite terrified about that. And I mean, Berto also just has a ton of competitive experience playing a wide range of decks, and that's going to lend itself very well to building decks in such a odd and unique an odd and unique format. But I mean, that's where his opponent Killswitch is going to come in, because Killswitch is a bit more of a bit more used to just playing meta decks, and it's hard to build meta decks in such a wild format, because at least with Pauper you could just run like the Pauper like cards from meta decks and then fill in the elites and specials with similar cards. But when you restricted half your collection just outright and not based on rarity, it's a lot harder to build the decks exactly the way you want to. But before we start talking too much about Killswitch, Bear, is there anything you want to add about Berto Burrito?
I mean, Berto is, to me, one of the most fascinating players in cards because Berto is insanely consistent competitively. Berto is the kind of person who has legitimately made a last-minute run for top 34 and done it on an 80% win rate. That's insane. He's got, I mean, you look at his card, he's got nearly $5,000 in tournament take home. He's 18 OCC appearances. Legitimately, I think one of the most experienced players and one of the most skilled players I've ever come across. Berto is also one of the few players on ladder who I have met many times and still never had a ladder win against. Not one. And, you know, there's something to be said there, but also I think the thing that speaks to me most about Berto after watching the games that he's been through is that Berto is a very strong psychological player. He doesn't get super tilted. He's able to put stuff aside because he's had some rough runs in some of the games that he's played. And in any other player, I might have expected a couple of the moments to have ended up with him maybe getting pushed and not being able to take it to a seventh game. But he's done it every time, and yes, he's come out at the back end of it. But I agree with you, by the way. If I'm watching Berto after two losing sets, I don't want to be the next person he's playing, because the odds are not in my favour. I mean, I think you can legitimately call him a cards legend with regards to the degree to which he plays and experiences competitively. And I also agree with the differentiation that you make between his deck building experience versus Killswitch's. Both are excellent pilots, but I would argue that Berto's probably done a lot more deck building and coming up with different crazy ideas that somehow work, and that might be very relevant here because, like you say, this is wild.
Yeah, but you mentioned Killswitch here. We had you on casting Killswitch's previous week where he beat Innocent Bubbles. So I mean, you've spoken about Killswitch before, and I mean, he lost that week one, and there was some question marks about just like, you know, how well is he going to do in this tournament? In this tournament where deck building is as important as piloting, is very unlike previous tournaments Killswitch has played in. But honestly, I thought his deck building was quite good in week one, and then he came back week two, again very solid deck building, and less creative, less flashy for the most part than some of the other players here. But I mean, he went to Game 7 against Baron, who's currently our front runner, and then he took it over Bubbles. So I mean, just a very solid position here in the tournament, and he needs a win here today to advance to the next round. And I mean, this is the game mode, the week so far, the format that might be the most restrictive, the hardest for him to come up with five very, very good decks. However, I think Killswitch is always at the end of the day going to lean towards building five consistent decks with not without putting more thought into it as the other players, but I think the other players are going to take more risk in the deck building stage. And obviously taking risks can pay out really, really big. As I think we've sort of seen that with Baron, who has brought some very risky decks, and he's the front runner. He's gotten some very big wins coming up where he needed them. I think Killswitch here is going to be very, very stable. And if we look at Berto has also brought some very, very interesting decks, some very wacky decks to the previous 2 weeks, and he has struggled. So I think Killswitch is capable of winning this absolutely. I'd say if I had to put money on it, I'd say maybe 55-45 in favor of Berto, but that's still very good odds, and Killswitch has proven me wrong before. Killswitch has proven a lot of people wrong before when he just sort of burst onto the competitive scene and started taking down big names, getting second place 3 different times. He's very comfortable on aggro as well as control, so in these big best of 7s, it's not like he's going to be forced super far out of his comfort zone stylistically. So yeah, I think Killswitch is a great player, and is going to give Berto a run for his money here, and it's a must-win game for both of them. So that's going to be incredibly exciting. There's no, trolling. There's nothing. Both of these players are absolutely here to win this game, this match, and it is the most important match so far that they've had to play in this tournament. I know you've spoken about Killswitch last week, but do you have anything you want to say again here?
Just going to summarize it the same way I always do, which is that Killswitch is the guy you can't count out, because Killswitch is the guy, with all due respect to everybody else in this, I would say for me, Killswitch is the guy least likely to make a mistake. Killswitch is incredibly focused. And it amazed me watching his set in Pauper, how focused he stayed over such a long period of time. And how clinical he is. He's a clinical player. He's going to back, and I will see the decks in a bit, but I was not surprised by them. He's going to back his ability to take a good, solid deck and play it nigh perfectly and believe that that's enough. And the terrifying thing is that genuinely, a lot of the time, that will work. I think I would say it's fair to say the edge is slightly in Berto's favour, but I'm kind of with you in that I think if we have to deal in 5%, then Berto gets the 5%. But this is going to be wild, because I think I don't like calling who would win this. I feel uncomfortable even giving the 5%. But yeah, I mean, do not count either of these players as anything other than 100% focused on what they need to do here, because they know the stakes and they are here to win. They have something to prove against some of the best players in the game.
Yeah, exactly. And we know both of these players have found their success in the past. We know both of these players are excellent pilots, but this tournament does not just measure how good of a pilot you are or how good of a player you used to be. This is how good of a player you are right now, and part of that is in deck building. So let's get into the decks. Starting here with Berto Burrito's first deck, it is a even Soviet USA ramp deck. And this deck is a ton of fun. This is really getting the most powerful even cards. This is like, I think, probably the quintessential even control style deck. You have the War Machines in there, obviously, to ramp. You get the Spy Rings and the Scorched Earths and the Bryansk and the mobile defenses. We've seen this combination in every single week, from in Classic and in Pauper, and now we're seeing it again here in the even odds format. And then on the upper end, you get just some of the very powerful Soviet cards. The T-60 for value generation, Heroes of the Soviet Union to sort of unlock some of the very powerful odd elite Soviet cards. First Rifles Corson, 36th Rifles, 2 copies of Blue and Gray. This is going to just be a very sticky unit that's going to generate a lot of value. It's going to be generating retributions, which allows him to be very reactive in sort of what cards he wants to take, reacting to the current situation of the game. 2 copies of Partisan and KV. This is just a very sort of bunker down and defend, and then slowly win out with this big value generation from the Blue and Gray and the Spy Rings. And this is Berto's very, very good at piloting this type of deck, and this deck looks very scary. However, I want to mention that in week 1, Berto Burrito in classic mode brought a US Soviet Spy Ring Ramp Scorched Earth style deck. And that was the deck that he lost on. That was the deck that he couldn't get across the finish line. I think it lost 3 times, if I recall correctly, and it was the deck that lost in Game 7 to Baron. And I think we similarly saw, I forget if it was Berto who brought it, but we saw a Spy Ring Soviet ramp deck struggle to take back the win in Pauper. So is even in odds the format where this is going to work? Has it just been merely variance in the previous formats that saw this deck struggle? Or is this deck just simply not as good as these players think it is, and is it just going to struggle? What do you think, Bear?
So this deck fascinates me on a million different levels. Like many competitive players of a certain age, I am by definition, and I admit it, a lover of control at heart. I think most top players would eventually admit we kind of like control, because control makes us feel like it's our skill that wins out or loses out, whereas aggro can sometimes feel a little bit more draw dependent. There are a couple of things that I actually think are very, very smart in here, and I want to draw attention to 2 cards lurking in this deck that I think are Berto's line crossing solution, and that's Ural Factories and Red Banner. Now, both of these cards let you sacrifice a unit to get a unit that has higher cost, but critically, there are some amazing targets. The 36th Cavalry is an obvious target, because as soon as you pop it, you're going to get its effect of the 2 units that pop onto the board. But don't underestimate the value of being able to pop that on Blue and Grey too, because Blue and Grey is a 6-cost unit, which means if you pop the +2 cost card on this, you could get an IS-2 out of it, and you proc and get a retribution, you get an outrage in your hand, and this has the potential to be very good late game value generation. And with the ramp, Firebomb is 3 firebombs, has the potential to do quite a lot of damage if he goes into aggro. I do have concerns about how slow this could be. And I'm not sure whether I'm not 100% sure whether these changes are enough to get it over the line, but they're enough to make me raise an eyebrow about this. And I think this is the version of this Soviet US Soviet ramp combo that we've seen so far that has the best chance of winning.
Alrighty. Well, that is just one of his 5 decks. So let's take a look at his second deck here, and it is Japan USA aggro. And we've seen this a little bit throughout this event. People either saving their German cards for a different deck. In this case, it might just be because most of the good German cards, if you think about it, are even. And Japan aggro, you absolutely want to be going odd for all of the 1-drops. And if you think about the good US cards, most of them are odd. And we see them in this deck, the US cards here, Combat Engineers, 164ths for Freedom, Red Devils, and M10 is the M10 to get through Guard. This is just a very, very aggressive deck. Of course, you have all of the Japanese 1-drops, expansion for draw. And then on the top end, for just a little bit more gas, you have the Naval Supply Run, the Goshikin, and the Shiden. So for a bit more value, a bit more burst, getting a bit more out of all of these 1-drops. And then the one card that stands out to me here more than anything else is the single copy of Production Order. And I actually really like this. I've been thinking about this just like in general, in Standard. Is just like a 1-of copy of Production Order good in an aggressive deck? Because 1 credit, and one credit, you get a big threat that can also suppress through several guards or healing effects or whatever, and then all of your units primarily have 0 op, so they can go face while you're spending your turn 8 playing down this big guy that is generating a threat for the opponent, and also removing guard for all your 0 op units to go face. But also, it plays around Scorched Earth, which we have seen has been a staple in all of the weeks, because Scorched Earth is just a disgustingly powerful card, and it's the primary way to shut down these very aggressive decks. If your opponent Scorched Earth's a board of 1-drops, you can just do Production Order, get the B24D, and now it has its cost reduced by your 4-op units that were Scorched, and you don't care about those, that Scorched Type 94 anymore, because now you're playing down a 4-cost 6/5 Blitz Bomber and going face. This deck seems very, very powerful. It's very, very creative, but if you actually look at it, I think everything checks out. There's not really any big question marks for me anywhere in this deck. This is just a very, very solid Japan aggressive deck. Yeah, what do you think about this deck?
I genuinely love the tech on this deck. So first of all, I do want to call attention to the fact that there are, unless I missed my count in analysis, 23 1-drop units in this 39 card deck. That's insane. Your opening hand and your first few turns in this deck are pretty much guaranteed to be good. And then you've got cards that add so much value. I love For Freedom in this deck, and I think it can be very quickly underestimated when you kind of look at it and go, well, all right, so it's +1/+1 and it's a draw, but it's +1/+1 on units that aren't that survivable, but are incredibly fast. The other inclusion that I personally really like is the 109th. That 109th is such a strong card. Smokescreen sat there giving the buff as things hit the front line. And things are going to hit the front line. I mean, I do not want 41st Bicycle boys hitting the board, hitting the front line, getting a 109th, and then watch my opponent drop a For Freedom on them to get card draw, and then say, have fun, because this is just going to keep hitting you at 0 op cost. If this deck has a weakness, it's if you can find a way to hard counter or remove it, obviously like most aggro decks, but as aggro decks go, this is insanely aggressive, but as you say, in a very methodical way. Like the curve on this checks out. The low-end op cost average, which is really, really small. I'm not going to get noodly. No one wants me to do that on a stream. But I did. I looked at op cost and average values, and the maths on this deck makes me look at it and go, this is hard to answer.
Yeah, this is a very powerful deck. And depending on what Killswitch has brought, I wouldn't be that surprised if it eats a ban. Just, if Killswitch brings something slower, you might just want to ban the most aggressive deck here from Berto Burrito and just try to outvalue the other decks with a good control deck. But obviously, we'll have to wait to see Killswitch's decks to know exactly what type of deck he will be wanting to ban. But let's continue getting through Berto's decks here, moving on to deck number 3. And this is the deck that I know everyone in chat has been talking about, the deck that I think everybody was really waiting for. When you say even-odd format, there is only one card in the entire game that references even or odd cost cards, and that is Jet Prototype. So of course there was going to be a all even card Jet Prototype deck. We discussed internally among the players. I offered the players a poll on whether or not they wanted to ban Jet Prototype for this format, just because it was such an obvious deck to build. And the players agreed that, they wanted Jet Prototype in it, because it's obvious to build a deck with Jet Prototype. It's not obvious what that deck looks like. Is it going to be a German main? If so, is it Soviet ally? Is it US ally with the War Machines? Do you save your Jet Prototype and put it into a German ally deck to sort of get through a different main nation, split up the power level? Because obviously a lot of players are just going to think of banning the Jet deck because it's a Jet deck. You ban Jet in the even-odd format. So you don't necessarily want to put all of your really, really good best cards ever to make the single best deck you can, because again, there is a ban in this format, and if you simply just make the best deck ever, it will get a ban, and then your 4 other decks will struggle because you put all the good cards into that deck. And Berto here has decided that he is going to go forward with the deck that most closely resembles the deck that dominated the meta back in the day. And this is German Soviet Jet with 4 copies of War Production as the only order in the deck. And then, of course, you have the 64th Panzer Grenadiers, get those into the front line early, cheat out credits. You have the 554th Rifles for just 0-op things to throw out at the enemy. This deck is bringing in Befelswagen out of Classic, which is absolutely disgusting. This is not something that Jet needed. And yeah, and then on the top end, you just have exactly what you'd expect. You have the Zustors, the Jet Prototypes, the Comet, and the FW. These are just the big, even cost, heavy hitting planes that are going to be getting out as early. You're trying to get out as early as possible, and your opponent's just going to try to deal with them, but most likely struggle to deal with them. And once the Jets start hitting the board, that's just 5 damage face every single turn. And there's a ton of blitz potential out of this deck. This deck looks very, very good. The one thing that I will say about this deck is not having War Machine it makes this deck quite a bit on the weaker side of getting out decks. Because the control decks are probably going to be running War Machine. I mean, your opponent has a max of 1 War Machine deck per nation, but you can probably guarantee your opponent's going to have at least 1 control deck with War Machine. And that important credit, permanent credit cheat, is going to outvalue the single-time credit cheat of War Production, since you have to still make it to at least turn 4 to cheat out a Jet Prototype. And if you're on turn 4, you would kind of like to be playing one of your 4-cost cards. So then doing War Production into Jet Prototype, there's also the possibility of hitting multiple War Productions. So this isn't the end-all, be-all, like, best deck of the format that I think a lot of people might have thought it was, but I think that's a good plan from Berto, is don't make this deck too good. Don't sacrifice too many very good cards into this. No need to put War Machine and Jet, which are 2 of the most powerful even cards in the format, into the same deck. Let's separate those to have 2 very good decks rather than 1 incredible deck. What's your read on the way Berto has chosen to build this deck, Bear?
So, I'll start by giving everyone the entertainment value of my first note that I wrote when I broke this deck down, which is this is the original German-Soviet Jet Prototype deck with buffs. Brackets, like it needed them. Now, I really, really loved this version when I had to. Now, love is the wrong word. I liked using this version when I had to compete in the Jet meta, because while I can argue, and a lot of people did, that the US ally version is more consistent over the long game, in the mirror, I always found the edge if you could get War Production without basically choking yourself by having another War Production in hand, often would go to the Sov deck, because that Sov ally lets you get a lot of value out early if you want to. The other thing that I love about Berto's call here is it was 50-50 to me whether literally everybody was just going to bring Germany US Jet Prototype, because it is the deck. Literally the prototype deck that became ludicrously powerful. It's consistent, it's strong, you can run amazing cards in it. It's really smart not to. I think it's really smart to stick with Soviet Ally, because Soviet Ally is good, and as J. King pointed out, like, the key here is that this lets you put a lot of those really good US cards elsewhere, and honestly, this deck doesn't need them. And it makes this deck, I would say, about 10 to 15% less likely to eat a ban. Like, if you bring the US Jet Prototype deck, unless you've brought something else that is utterly egregious, your opponent's just going to ban it. I would, because it's too consistent. So I actually think this was a very smart move. Plus, it's got Zastora in it, and I know you, like me, are a huge fan of Zastora because it is incredible value.
Yeah, and I've noticed 3 other things that I want to mention about this deck. 3 minor points. One, the inclusion of shifting attack, which I believe I'm like 99% sure Shifting Attack did not coincide with the jet meta. Shifting Attack came out with the following expansion, the Covert Operations expansion, and by that point you already saw the rotation of War Production and the nerf of Jet Prototype, so the deck was largely gone. But here we go, Shifting Attack with Jet Prototype means you can attack for face for another 5 or another 4 with combination of Comet for just crazy burst potential later in the game, even if that means milling out your entire deck. And then the other two things I want to mention are somewhat similar. One is there's the single copy of 60th Cavalry, which is players can only cast 1 order per turn, and that's really good for this deck because it runs 4 orders and you're only playing 1 in a turn because it discards the other ones in your hand. And that's going to be good against certain other decks. It's going to block out things like developing a research, and then playing it immediately, or a couple like 2 order turns if you get later in the game. You can't do Monsoon Supply in the same turn. Although not that you'd be able to do that regardless, because one's even and one's odd. But that sort of brings me to the third thing: is there's no sudden strikes in this deck, which I find very interesting because in the even and odd format, because the curves of decks are thrown off a lot. The even decks absolutely need to run 2-drops, so there's going to be a lot of 2-drops in the meta. And then the odd decks are probably aggressive decks running a lot of 1-drops. So if the even decks are hard mulliganing for 2-drops, and the odd decks just have overwhelming 1-drops, it makes me surprised to see that there aren't any sudden strikes. Now, the reasoning would be sudden strike gets discarded by War Production. So it's not that it was a mistake. There's a conscious thought that went into not bringing Sudden Strike. But, I could see this deck getting stuck behind a wall of Bryansk regiments, or even 5th Brigades generated off of first responders. This deck doesn't really have any suppress. I mean, the closest thing you get is off Clorung in to hit the drop point. So it can struggle if you can get down a wall of guards, but as you mentioned, it's also capable of putting a ton of damage early in the game, even without Jet. If you just hit like a 554th and a 64th Panzergrenadier, and it pulls a Befehlswagen, and then suddenly you're hitting face for 6 on turn 2 with the credits to play down a 35T or something else. This deck is capable of crazy burst, but that's probably enough talking about Jet.
I do have one quick note on this deck, which did occur to me as on my notes, is that I was a little surprised not to see Pack 40 either as for cost, for exactly the same reasons that you've just illustrated, because it's a great answer to 2-drops, and you're going to see them. So I was a little surprised not to see it kind of shunted in the way that back in the day, people liked to shunt in a piece of artillery we shan't talk about, for much the same reason. But yeah, it was just something to note while we were picking out little things that maybe I'd have done differently. I might have maybe dropped a couple of Alf Clorung and put in some Pack 40 just for removal, but I still think this is very good.
Alrighty, moving on to deck number 4. And here we have a very, very interesting and I think a very, very well-built deck. It is Brit-German Air. And, I mean, when you think about Air, you think about some of its best cards. You have Empire Strikes, which has obviously been rotated, but they're allowed to use rotated cards. That's even. And people have been really liking the new Sea Embargo. Again, even. Spitfire, just a beefy body that a lot of Air decks like to run. Even. So, at first thought, you're also losing Shark and Albacore. At first thought, you might think, well, you can't really build an air deck. Berto says, no, you can definitely build an air deck, and you're going to be doing it with German Ally, because with an odd air deck, you still get close air support, you still get the 1-drops, Gladiator and Swordfish, and then with Germany, you get 3 copies of the newly buffed Suppression, which of course is suppress a unit for 1 credit, draw a card if you control an air unit. You're playing air, you're always going to have an air unit. So it's just 1 credit suppress draw, which is quite good. You get Arados in there as additional 1-drop air units. You get the Jaeger regiments because he used German even. So that means he gets the odd cost Jaeger regiments. And then you just get all of the card draw from Britain with the convoys, the MI5s. You get Schelling, you get Sexton, you get Monty. You get the Raft Lightnings, you get the Wellington, which can have its cost reduced, and the 2 copies of Breakthrough are also really interesting. I've never seen Breakthrough in air, but it's going to be quite good at every air unit has an operation cost, and air can sometimes struggle for removal, so why not play a Breakthrough? that acts as removal that will also reduce the operation cost. This deck looks like a ton of fun. This deck looks incredibly well built. And I'm excited to see this game, or a game with this deck. What do you think about this deck?
So I love this deck in a number of ways that go to an understanding of an archetype that gets much more detailed than players do. Everything you've just said is 100% true about the things that you do lose from Brit Air, but Berto's realised it just doesn't matter. And he's also realised that you have got back, like, there are only two, well, there's three, but I'm not gonna, supply shortage was just gonna be there because everyone loves supply shortage. But the two other rotated cards in this deck are cracked in air. Monty and Shelling are busted beyond belief, and Air loves it. And specifically, and I know this can happen because it happened when I was testing this deck, the turn you do not want to see is you're having a big board and your opponent having a bunch of bombers and then going, I play Monty, draw into breakthrough, play breakthrough, and then just obliterate your HQ. Then next turn, I drop supply shortage, play Shelling, pin you again, and just wait to win. And I legitimately did this in testing. This deck is way stronger than it may look. You really want to see this deck see play, but I personally expect this deck to eat a ban. Saying that now, I looked at this deck and I went, I would not want to play this deck. I do not want to play into this deck. I would just ban it and move on because it's so strong.
That is sort of the struggle here, where in the past we've just said ban any deck with Monty. You know, Monty and Shelling are legal, just ban the decks with Monty and Shelling. And we've seen a lot of players do that. But now we're into a format where there's a sort of a king deck in the format of Jet. And the Jet deck doesn't run Monty or Shelling. So now you want to ban Jet, but you also want to ban Monty and Shelling, and you can't do both at the same time. So it's going to be very interesting to see which one Killswitch does end up banning. And yeah, I think it might have to be this deck. Looking at this deck, I think this deck is probably just a bit more consistent than the Jet deck. In that it's a bit harder to counter because Air just gets through guards. Often they don't care about even stuff like Scorched Earth because it doesn't matter if the unit has 4 op. If it's like a 4/6 bomber the opponent can't answer, you just go face for 4 every turn. And we've all had that situation either playing with Air or against Air, where the A player, you know, their opponent has 5 units in the front line, they have 4 guards in the support line, they're at like 20 health, how can they lose the game? And you do Monty, Swordfish, 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 cast, then you have pass the turn, and then you do Shelling, hit face with all of the Swordfish through the 4 guard, and then they pass again, and then you hit again with all the Swordfish through the guard a second time, and you win the game. We've all been there, where Air just wins out of literally thin air, off Monty and Shelling, just wins they have no business getting. So yeah, I think I see Monty, I see Shelling, I see Swordfish, I see Cass, I see a ban.
Yeah.
But now let's take a look at Berto Burrito's last deck. And here he said his favorite nation was Soviets. He said his favorite deck was self-damage. And we were quite surprised to see him not bring self-damage in the previous 2 weeks. Well, here he is finally bringing it in week 3. Is this a sign that, you know, he's sort of hunkering down, taking things ultra seriously here? Is this a sign that he's reverting back to comfort picks? Who knows? We can psychoanalyze the choice of bringing this deck all we want. But what I will say about this deck is it fits really, really well into the even-odd format because all of the self-damage cards are odd, and the nerf, the quote-unquote nerf to 34th guards to make it go from 6 to 7 is actually a buff in this format because it means you can actually fit the main payoff of self-damage into an odd-cost deck with all of the odd-cost self-damaging cards. The one big loss is 456th, but I think you're going to make up with it just because of how the format works. You're not playing against turn 1 Cav into 35T. If your opponent's playing 1-drops, you play 1-drop removal. If your opponent doesn't play 1-drops, you play Shibata. You play 97th. You play recons, and then your opponent plays 2-drops, so then you still red dawn the 2-drop and keep going with your life. This is a very powerful deck, and then on the top end, he's included a lot of the very powerful Soviet elites that you might not usually see in self-damage, like the Armored Train, Strategic Focus, Depths of Winter. And then you have a Parade in there as well. 2 copies of Petlyakov are also very important. Petlyakov versus Jet is kind of hilarious, because now it's going to come down as instead of coming down as a 0-op 1-5 or 1-4, it's going to come down as a 5-op 6-5, which is a little bit different. But the one card in here that it hasn't seen its big moment yet in this tournament, but one of my least favorite cards ever printed in cards, I think of sort of a sleeper for one of the most disgusting cards ever made, is the 39th Rifles. It doesn't matter that you're running Petlyakovs. It doesn't matter that this is like one of your only deployment effects in the deck. You just run this anyways, because if it reaches turn 5 and your opponent has a 1 or a 2 cost unit on the board and you play 39th on turn 5, you win the game like 90% of the time. That's such a ludicrously powerful tempo swing. And of course, Berto's going to fit that card into this deck. This deck has a lot of staying power. The one thing this deck doesn't have is a lot of healing. Berto only has Road to Berlin and Engineers as the main healing. He does not get to run Island Defense because of the even cost, so it can get rushed down because it's missing its main guard and it's missing its main healing. It can definitely get rushed down by Jet, which could see Berto being feeling more like banning Jet than, say, banning a Monty Shelling type deck. But yeah, against anything like Jagro, against sort of frontline, or any type of German mid-range deck, this deck is going to be absolutely nasty, and it's going to also be able to stand toe-to-toe with most control decks.
Yeah, I mean, this deck is terrifyingly efficient. It does have some lag. I agree with you. You were always nervous about lack of an ability to come back from that self-damage in a self-damage deck. But the thing is, if you're as good as Berto is, you bet on yourself to be able to work through that and get the win before you lose out. Also, Shibata is so good right now in self-damage for the effect that it has on everything playing into self-damage. Zukov, yeah, Parade, fine. I have to say, you and I, apparently, one other thing we share is a passionate hatred of 39th Rifle. I'm not going to lie, I don't like the card. I don't like any card in any game that has that effect. But I also, for its value, played at the right time, it is such a big swing. And I think having the issue with healing is one of the reasons that Armored Train is a very good call in this, because having a big guard that keeps spitting out just 1 points of damage that you can try and break your way back through with is possibly useful if you get back-footed. And also Parade has the potential to do, again, some truly horrendous things. But yeah, I like this. I think it's consistent. As I'd say, I am also a little bit worried that it's not super able to get to the cards it wants. You very much need those scouting parties and 33rd recons to cycle the draw. But I think Berto's built a very good self-damage deck. And yeah, the one thing I did write on my notes is that this is a great call because this loses next to nothing in the format, because apart from island defense, self-damage just doesn't care.
Yeah, and you also don't have to lose a lot of cards that you would want to be running in Japan. Obviously, you would love to run Shibata in Jagro, you'd love to run Recon in Jagro, but Jagro has enough 1-drops, has enough 3-drops. And I mean, yeah, I mean, we saw the Japan-US deck. That deck looked absolutely solid, and like that deck doesn't have Shibata or Recon. And it looks completely solid without them. So this is a wonderful deck here. But that is enough about Berto's decks. Let's get up Killswitch's decks here, and get through what Killswitch is bringing. And Killswitch is bringing his staple. It is the Mono Japan, 39 Japan cards. He's done this every week. I'm not sure why. Only Killswitch himself can really answer that, but I mean, he's 1-1, and the Japan deck has not been the one that's struggling. I think Japan got essentially. I think his mono Japan decks are like 2-1 in the format so far. They've absolutely not been caused any issue. And in this format, again, it works really well. You can't run 22nd, you can't run 35T, so it's not like it's missing out on the obvious German ally cards. And we saw Berto going with the US ally. Killswitch says, why would I need any ally? There's just enough good odd cost German cards. So you see on the top end, you have the Shiden, similarly to Berto's deck. In the 3-cost category, he has a bit more than Berto had with the Shinodos. And then in the 1-cost category, again, sort of making up for where the 164ths were, the combat engineers, he has the Shibatas and the Recons in the Japan deck, Out of the Mist, Honorable Death. This is just a very, very fast-paced deck. And again, it's Jagro. It's going to have some bad matchups. It's going to have most of the good matchups. If it hits a bad matchup, it might lose a game, but it's probably not going to lose more than one game ever in any lineup. It's just a very solid deck. In the lineup, it's almost as quintessential, I suppose, to odd and even as a Jet deck is. Do you have anything else to add to Mono Japan here?
I'd love to endlessly rail on about interesting stuff, but I mean, I have one note on this deck, on my notes, and it just does exactly what it says on the tin. That's it. That's all you can say about this. There is nothing that you miss. And this thing, I agree with you. It might lose one game, it might even lose 2 games, but it's gonna win something because it's so damn fast.
Yeah, you never have to worry about this deck being the deck in your lineup that can't win a game. That's never going to happen. Then we have a deck in a very different direction. We've seen Killswitch bring Soviet control, I think, every week here. Killswitch loves Soviet control. We saw Soviet Italy in the past. Now we're back to Soviet France, sort of the two quintessential Soviet control allies, going very old school on this. And he says, you know what? You don't need even for control. You don't need Bryansks to play Soviets. Screw Bryansks. I'm going to do odd Soviet control here with France Ally, and I think France Ally actually brings a lot to the board here with the Rimas, the 51sts, the Defend in Depths for the removal, Phony War for the card draw, and then you really get to see the power of these odd Soviet elites that we didn't really see in the Soviet even cost control deck, the Soviet US ramp deck we saw from Berto. We saw the even Soviet elites a little bit worse than the odd Soviet elites here. We see Depths of Winter, Armored Train, 39th Rifle, Strategic Focus, ISU. This deck has a ton of board clears. It has healing in the Engineers and the Road to Berlin. It has removal with the Winter Warfares and the Sickle, so it's not a self-damage deck, but you see a lot of the similar removal, so it will be able to go toe-to-toe with Jagro. And then on the top end you have, in the middle for removal, you have the Hammer, the BM, you have a Confusion, and 2 copies of 52k. This is a deck that is saying, you know what, I'm not like 100% banning Jets. I'm not scared of Jets. I'm not just giving Jets a free win. I'm going to try to go toe-to-toe with Jets, and I'm going to try to beat Jets. That's what Killswitch is saying with the way he has built this deck, and I respect that. I don't know how well this deck is going to work out, but I think it's going to be a pretty solid list. It might lose a game or 2 just to a weak opening hand against something very aggressive, just because with any Soviet deck, it's very difficult to, if you get a bad mulligan, it's very difficult to come back. There's no like sort of constant cycling effects or ways to sort of rejig your hand past the opening mulligan. So, you know, if your opening hand is Strategic Focus, Rima, Phony War, and your opponent plays a 1-drop going first, you're probably going to lose. But if you get a decent hand, a decent curve, this deck is absolutely able to just snowball with its good removal, good units. Yeah, what else is there to say about this deck?
I mean, it's what, 13 elites, 7 specials, all of which are ludicrously strong. And I think France Ally was the perfect call. I love Defend in Depth. Defend in Depth is an incredibly powerful card in this format because it's just good removal. The 31st Algerian is also worth looking for because if you can get in the right position, that buff can also be huge. But I mean, it is what it is. My biggest concern is consistency. But again, I think if you end up playing this deck a couple of times, you'll probably win one. It is inconsistent. I will say that. It When I first looked at this deck, it felt a little bit like a pile until I could wrap my head around it. Had to play it a few times, but it's stronger than it looks on paper.
Yeah, it's the type of deck where you look at the curve and you're like, that's a lot of 3 drops, not a lot of 1 drops, and nothing on 2, obviously, because of the format. But you only need like 1 drop. And then you're basically happy. You're fine passing your turn. If you go first, you're probably not like there's some things. But if you're going first, you're more than happy to just pass the turn to the opponent because oftentimes you want to play a bit more reactively with Soviet control. But that is enough about this deck. Let's move on to deck number 3, and we are seeing another Britain odd deck, but this is a very different take on a Britain odd deck. This is not a Britain odd aggressive air deck. This is a Britain odd control package. And it's with Poland ally, and I absolutely love it because the way Poland control has sort of worked has been revolutionized by Stretch the Line, which is obviously the 2-cost card. But if you look at just the original old school package of Poland ally, it is literally just what he is running. There's not like any noticeable exceptions. People sometimes ran Underground State, but sometimes they didn't run Underground State. But the cards that people always ran are the Uprisings, the Tarnows, the Plan Wests, and the PZLs. And that's exactly what he has. And then on top of that, for a little extra intel, he has the 2 Orps, the 1K Orp and the 3K Orp, which are both British Exile, so we can run them easily. And then on top of that, we saw a very different package of British odd cards from Berto, and obviously they have the similarities of Monty and Schelling. But otherwise, Berto was running the cards like Close Air Support, the Swordfish, the Gladiators. Here, Killswitch is running the cards like the Black Watch, the Churchill, the Lend-Lease, the Co-Belligerents, which I love, absolutely love. This deck, again, seems like it might be a little bit clunky. I'm kind of shocked to not see at least 1 copy of Carpet Bombing on top of the Uprisings, just because this deck can struggle very much to stay on board in the early game. And this deck does feel like it's going to be a lot weaker to, say, a deck like Jet. However, if Jet is built with the way Berto has built Jet, which is Soviet ally and no really way to get through guards, then Plan West can be really, really annoying card and just absolutely stop the Jets from going face. Again, this feels like a control deck, which might not win on its first try, but it's solidly built, and it's a little bit slower than the Soviet deck with things needing to come in on 3, but the things that do come in on 3 are a bit more defensive, I would say. You feel a bit happier playing them on 3. So yeah, this deck, again, might struggle to win, but its first game necessarily, but I think it's a solid deck to just have in the format. I don't think you're going to regret bringing this deck, perhaps maybe against the research Soviet US list. But yeah, what do you think about this deck?
I straight up love this deck. This deck is nothing if not reliable over a longer period of time. The inclusion of Inniskill Fusiliers is not to be forgotten. The ping that you will get from intel from those can be quite telling. At least it was in my testing. And this thing does not lack for top end ways to make you hurt. I think if you can survive the early game, your odds of winning on this deck rocket significantly because it is very difficult to deal with this thing in the late game. The one of fortification, I think, is a very smart include in the format because if you get a bad start against, say, US Jet, being able to just prop up your health enough to give yourself a bit more time and then rely on Orp Bliskavika to then buff your health up even more is pretty good. But on the whole, it's like you said, it's a classic control package with legions for staying power, and there's absolutely no reason to not run this deck. It is nasty to look at, but it's just consistency. It's just I trust control will let me play out the late game.
It's also the type of deck where a turn 1 Pioneer is absolutely nasty in this. And we saw from Berto, there's not really anything that answers a turn 1 Pioneer except for maybe Suppression. And if you had a turn one Pioneer, you are absolutely chilling with this deck because you run a lot of orders on 3, and it gives you something to do on 2 that you would otherwise be completely lacking. So yeah, we will see possibly even just hard mulliganing for that 85 Pioneers from Killswitch here. But we still have 2 more decks to talk about here. This is a deck that it is. I think I would be shocked if this deck doesn't eat a ban, because this does feel just like all of the good stuff thrown into a deck. It's a German USA. It's even, you have the Jets, you have the War Machines, we spoke about this before. You bring in the cards like Fifth Rangers again. Perfect card for even US ally. He has the pack 40s to get through these annoying guards like Brionsk. He has the 4 copies FW, 2 Zerstorer. Just big, huge bodies you're consistently going to be able to get down on turn like 5, turn 6, turn 4 even. And then on the top end, where instead of having the 0 drop it a bit more aggressive, the war productions from the Soviet ally, it's a bit slower, but you also run Blitz Doctrine, which is going to give you even more staying power in the game. This deck is just massive, massive, massive value pile where it's going to be outspeed and put on enough pressure to challenge the decks like, say, the Soviet USA control deck, while not putting on enough units to get blown out by, say, the air deck or the self-damage deck by getting blown off the board early in the game. It's going to be able to go toe-to-toe with that with its war machines into larger units. This deck just feels really, really well placed into Berto's lineup. It's running a lot of very solid cards. This seems like the automatic ban pick coming out from Berto. I would be shocked if this deck does not get banned. What do you think about this deck?
Not going to say much about it because there's not much to say about it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. This is a beefed up version of the Jet prototype deck. The Jet prototype deck that we all came to know and loathe. The Jet prototype deck that was the mirror match that we all came to play endlessly and hope we got a good roll on. Adding Verbal Vind 5th Rangers into this deck and then being able to throw pack 40. I legitimately, I 100% this as the ban. I would ban this without a second thought because there is even Blitz Doctrines in here. This deck contains so much strong German and frankly US value that banning it just feels like the smart move to me because you're taking so much out of your opponents. This is why, as I said, with Berto's Jet deck, I thought Berto had the for me the more switched on thought process of running a Jet deck that isn't this deck, because I think you see this deck eats a ban in this format.
Yeah, that might be sort of the tournament experience from Berto coming in here, where you've spent more time thinking about lineups and bans and ban strategies as a whole, like sort of the meta game around bringing it. Whereas Killswitch might have just looked at the format and been like, I'll just like, this is the best German deck I can bring. This is a very, very good deck. I will bring this deck. And you know, I think Killswitch might have gone into this approaching every deck as what is the best possible deck for this nation or nation combination I can bring, whereas Berto has thought more holistically around that. We will see if it works out, because even having a deck that you're certain your opponent's going to ban is not always a bad thing, because it means you're just confident that you can bring in the other decks and like sort of target something, because you're confident your other 4 decks are all going to be the cohesive unit of your lineup, and you know, none of those cogs are getting banned if you have a deck that's 100% getting banned like this one is. But yeah. And then let's take a look at his last deck here. It's going to be a second German deck, but this one is a German odd deck. And here we see the power of German odd cards that we didn't really see from Berto. Berto had the odd German ally with the Jaegers. Here, Killswitch, he said his favorite deck is Gerbrit Discard, and we see Gerbrit Discard here, both players bringing their favorite decks to their final week. And here, now we see why the carpet bombing was missing from the odd Britain-Poland control. Why? Because the carpet bombing was in the German-Britain odd deck. And here you have Devil's Brigade coming in. My goodness, this card. Incredibly powerful against Jagro. You have the tactical strikes, the autocannon, Martyr, MEBF. This is not necessarily just like an all-in super heavy discard deck, like you might expect. Obviously, it has the Annihilations, the Wolf Packs, the MI5s, but it's fighting for the board. It's actually going to be able to go toe to toe. And I think a big part of this is missing cards like Root Out, like some of the larger guides that this deck sometimes runs, like the Grenadier guides. This deck is really just going to try to stay on board and then just win with these big chunky units. The Panzer Grenadiers, going up to 5 cost allows you to fit it into this deck, which is quite nice. And then just Wolfpack, MI5, Hipper, Annihilation all being a cohesive, odd package. I think this deck is going to work out really, really well for him. If he didn't have the Jet deck, I would almost want to ban this just because this deck looks really solid. I think it's probably the most consistent of his 3 control lists. But obviously the Jet deck exists, so it's getting banned. But yeah, what else do you have to say about this deck? This deck looks very good to me.
I called this out because obviously we have the advantage that we obviously get to see the deck submissions in advance for all 4 players. I will straight out say that in my opinion, this might be one of the strongest decks, consistency-wise, in this entire lineup. I love this deck for the fact that this is Killswitch backing a set of cards that we know he loves. He loves his discard, which means he knows how to use it well, and that's not as easy as people think it is. Discard is not just ping out discard. There aren't enough cards for that. You need to pick your time for when it's going to have the chance of impact. And ideally, you want your opponent to have a thin hand so that you're going to get rid of something they really want, that they're sitting on and you know they want to play. By the way, I consider that easier to predict in this format because you're looking at odds and evens. The turn tempo of when those big swing cards are likely to be played is much more predictable. If you know they're going to drop a big even card next turn on turn 6, so turn 5, it's like discard time because I might make you miserable. Arado will go fishing for amazing order targets. And supply shortage, Marder, the JU-88 is insane if you can start picking off the things that you really want. There are so many targets you can steal with it, and we all know how much we love Jagd Bomber. Yeah, legitimately, I think this might be one of the strongest decks in the lineup, and I agree with you. If it weren't for the US-Germany jet deck, I would ban this, but I don't think Berto... I don't know, obviously, we'll see what Berto chooses, but I don't think Berto can afford to ban this and leave the US jet proto deck, and that goes back to what you said before, which is knowing what's going to get banned means that you can play something that your opponent can look at and think, God, this is egregious and I don't want to play into it, but I can't ban it.
Alrighty, well, speaking of bans, we have our players' bans. We have our players getting ready. So let's bring up the lineup here, and obviously we see a bit of a typo. That is Berto Burrito, not Innocent Bubbles. We'll see if I can fix that between games. But we see Berto's lineup here: 2 Soviet decks, no US deck, and then from Killswitch, 2 German decks, also no US deck. Both players say, you know what, US does not work with the odds and the evens. And we have the bans in here, so let's take a look at what has been banned. And Berto Burrito has his Britain-German air list banned, as Bear predicted, and Killswitch has his German-USA jet prototype deck banned. Obviously, there's 2 German logos up there. He has 2 German decks. It is the even German USA jet deck. Not a huge surprise, I don't think, with these bans. Would you say there, Bear?
No, I mean, I'm going to celebrate the fact that I called it. Called it down the tunnel. I think they're smart bans. I think both players know what they're doing. And honestly, I think when you looked at the list, there really weren't choices here. These were the 2 decks that needed to be banned. And I think both of these players will also not be surprised to see these decks banned.
Yeah, I don't think that will be the case at all. Let's let the players know that we are ready for them. While we're sort of getting the spectator mode set up here, what are your predictions for the set? Now, we've seen 4 games so far. We've seen both of these players play twice, and every single match has gone to Game 7. And obviously, Killswitch 1-1, Berto 0-2. If you had to predict a score, a final outcome for this match, what is it going to be, and who's taking it?
Alright, so first of all, if you've got caffeine, kids, you're probably going to need it. I expect this to go long. There's some very strong control decks. I expect this. I legitimately expect this to go to 7. I personally think I'm gonna. I did normally I would, like we said earlier, I would give the edge to Berto, but based on the decks and the pilots, I actually think I'm gonna plump for Killswitch actually pulling off a 4-3 here. And it's gonna be incredibly close, but we'll find out. But that's where I'd go.
All right, well, we're headed into game 1 here, and already things are looking good for Berto here. Berto starting out with his self-damage deck, going into the Jagro deck from Killswitch down on the bottom of your screen. This is exactly the matchup he wanted, and it's on one hand you could look at this and just say, oh, he got like the 25% chance of getting this matchup. I think it's a lot more than that. We saw Killswitch definitely start with Jagro against Bubbles. I think he also started with Jagro against Baron. I think he just sees Jagro as the most aggressive deck, the easiest deck to get a win on. I'm just going to start with it every matchup. And Berto is now using that sort of that lack of discipline, that comfort that Killswitch sort of goes in. And Berto is a very experienced tournament player, and he will punish any tiny mistake he can, whether it is in the game or outside of the game. And here, I think he is definitely punishing Killswitch by predicting this outcome, seeing Killswitch's the trends in what Killswitch likes to do, and getting this first, what is going to be most likely a bit of a snowball win for Berto Burrito on the self-damage deck, because for those who don't know, self-damage absolutely demolishes Jagro.
Yep. It's a terrible matchup if you're on Jagro, and you can look at it and go, oh, look, he's pulled Shibata, and there are some orders out. It's looking at Berto's hand right now, he's just sat there thinking, all I have to do is play this right, and I've got this. As you say, this is the match he wanted, and I agree with you. I think this is game theory. He looked at his opponent, he knows his opponent's got a pattern, and Killswitch is going to have to play out of his skin to have any chance of winning this.
Yeah,
I'd probably say this is probably 80-20 in Berto's favor, and I'm not. It's not hyperbole when I say this. Like, self-damage utterly loves this matchup.
Yeah, and the sort of the cards we have seen come out in the last 2 expansions that have sort of begun to make this. If you play this on ladder today, it's probably less favorable for the self-damage. Well, less than 80-20. It's still favorable for self-damage, but it's not quite 80-20. But the big cards that help that are Commit the Reserves, which is a even cost card that you can't run. And now, obviously, Berto Burrito is missing the 456, which is a big card for self-damage in this matchup. But I mean,
honestly, yeah, he's not going to lose to the self-damage minute of pain where you end up really low on HQ and they play desperate measures. Yeah, I think you are right. This format makes this an even worse matchup for Jagro, which is sad, really.
Yeah. I think because of the lack of healing in Berto, well, the lack of healing compared to the normal build of self-damage, in coming out from Berto here, there's a world where Killswitch could win this matchup with Burn. I don't think there's a world where that's going to happen once this 34th hits the board, which it already has now.
Yeah, there was. I agree with you. There was a world where that could happen. I don't think there is anymore.
Yeah, no Shiden, or sorry, not no Shiden, no Sendai, no Commit the Reserves. There's no way to get this off the board without just trading down with units.
You just don't have the bodies to trade this efficiently. Yeah, I mean, you.
But the Yokosuka here is going to come down. Yeah. He can take out the 34th guard for just 2 credits. He can even honorable death the Petlyakov and get a bike to the front line of Shibata on the board, which is threatening damage.
He's going to give Berto something that Berto's going to have to answer quickly. But I will note that there's that little 5-cost smug Soviet bannered chap loitering in Berto's hand. But yeah, this is a good trade for Killswitch. I like this trade a lot because it gives you the moment to say, actually, no, you can't have it all your own way.
And we see the last card in Killswitch's hand is Shiden, which,
Mm,
if Shibata sticks on the board and Shiden comes out, like if Berto simply just does, you know what, play the 5 cost guy on turn 5, take the bicycle, prevent the damage, clear out the front line, hit my opponent for 2, why not? If he does that, simply Shiden's going to come down onto the board with Shibata sticking. And that is
yeah, this is
so much damage.
yeah. This is where Berto is going to be seeing and hopefully thinking his lines and trying to. It is that thing of what are the odds that my opponents? Because Sheetan is literally, I would say, it might just be literally the only card that would be a problem right now. But he's playing into it right now.
Yeah, it's Killswitch's only 5 cost card.
Yeah. And oh, this could be devastating. It's oh. And again, Killswitch is doing the thing he can bring. And I know, like, people look at this and go, Sheedan's got Blitz and Fear and all that. Sheedan is not in any great danger of anything charging at it. Berto needs to think now, is he just Red Dawning this off the board?
It costs him 9 health to remove Sheedan here, which is less
That's
the damage that Sheedan
problem,
can
yeah.
deal if he leaves it
Yeah.
on the board. So I think he's
Board.
just gonna simply leave it here.
He's got to hope he can fish for a guard.
The second Shibata top deck is actually huge here, because it means he can
Huge, yeah.
sacrifice the first Shibata in to prevent the 39th from being able to trade with Sheedan due to the ambush.
Yeah, it means he doesn't have to try and take the high roll, because I was going to say the other thing he could do is obviously he could swing Sheedan into Petliarkov, then avoid the high roll by playing Audacity to get much the same effect, but this is a much more efficient way of being able to do it, and gets him the burn damage from signals.
But he could also just double attack face here and play Shibata. That way your opponent, yes, they can remove Sheedan, but it's, again, they're taking the 9 damage, 8 from Sheedan attack, and then 1 from the signal, and then you have 2 Shibata on board.
And don't miss the fact that Audacity creates a smoke screened bomber. There's not a lot you can do about it if your HQ defense is that low. So like 4 HQ defense right now, this is not a comfortable place to be.
But he trades.
Can't.
He chose to trade the Shibata instead of playing the other Shibata, and this is going to require Berto to double trade to remove Sheedan. But would you have rather see the second Shibata come out? It's a very difficult to sort of evaluate.
I think on the... It's weird, because I think I would probably have played it the same way Killswitch did. I think I like having the Shibata in hand. But it's a very close call. So, this is so risky. Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay.
I think that likely the card he was worried about was the 2 copies of Stand together, allowing, if he played the second Shibata, allowing some trade to turn into another unit that has Blitz and then can trade again.
Mm-hmm. Berto, by the way, playing that Red Dawn now early and giving himself that extra credit efficiency to have that from the people sitting in hand is huge.
50-50 for lethal, which he misses, but it will drop Berto to 1 health.
Yeah.
And the Shibata can come out as well, because he doesn't have to spend an extra credit operating, and that is just going to be game coming out. There's nothing in Berto's deck. He can't play an order. He can't remove a unit. And that is going to be game 1.
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to legitimately call out that was a huge win for Killswitch. You do not expect that win in that matchup. And again, it was about making no mistakes. No mistakes at all. I will say, I don't think that Audacity can actually damage HQ. Isn't it enemy unit only?
Yes, but the 50-50, if it hits the infantry in the front line, it has the credits for the Shinodo to go all the way across.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I mean, that was clinically done. And Berto is probably going to be hurting after that. And take a breath and be ready for game 2, because you do not expect to lose that match.
Yeah, and from Killswitch's perspective, it's like, you won on Jaguar, but if you didn't win on Jaguar this game, you're going to just run it back again and win on Jaguar the next game. It's not a big deal,
Yeah.
but the big thing is Berto doesn't get the win on self-damage. And self-damage is a good deck, but this was definitely its best matchup into Killswitch's lineup. And, if Berto said, you know what, Jaguar gets the win and we're 1-1, my self-damage is through Jaguars, he would take that situation in a heartbeat. But instead, the Jaguar is through, the self-damage is not through. That is a 1-0 lead for Killswitch. And we've seen Berto dropping down early in the set in both of his previous sets. I think this might be Killswitch's first game 1 win. Killswitch has also sort of gotten off to slower starts in his sets as well. So it was interesting to see which of them would get off here. And I mean, you can't blame it on Berto's play. You can't blame it on Berto's deck building here. This was simply, he got the read, he brought the correct matchup, and he played the best that he could. But Killswitch is also an incredible player. Killswitch built a good deck. Killswitch piloted the matchup well, and simply the cards, at the end of the day, it's a single game, and the draws just favored Killswitch slightly with that sort of setup with the Shiden after the Yokosuka trade to take out the 34th guards.
Just the way it played out. But I mean, again, you have to be part of that, and part of the psychology of competitive gaming is being able to clear your head from that and realize that it is perfectly possible to play perfectly and lose.
And also, with this being a round robin rather than simply just like, say, like a one-off tournament, is Berto is sitting on the knowledge that, I've gone down 0-2 in both of my previous matches. I've gotten unfortunate starts in both of my previous matches. I've gotten these crazy unlucky losses in matchups I should have won, in games I feel like I had the better deck or I played better in. Berto has all this mental baggage on top of losing this game at the start of the set. If Berto wins this set, and short of just getting incredibly lucky draws for the next 4 games, if Berto just wins this a close fought back and forth set, the mental fortitude to accomplish that is incredible.
Oh yeah, the mind game is huge, and is part of why I was willing to kind of give the edge to Killswitch here. And I think this is going to be a test of Berto's ability to just clear his head and get back into it, because this could be very tilting. This is not the opening you want to see.
Exactly. But now let's do a giveaway and then get the players ready for game 2. So again, !! giveaway in the chat if you want to join. It's a gold prizes, so anybody, regardless of your current position in cards, should sign up, try to get that gold. You can spend it however you want. And we will be drawing giveaways throughout the entire stream. I will message everybody the redeem codes at the end of the stream, so don't expect those immediately. Make sure Twitch Whispers are on so I can message you. And you only have to join once, and you are in it for the rest of the stream. So let's draw the first entrant, and the winner of the first prize is the Honest Druth. Congratulations. And you know what? Let's draw a second giveaway now, because I know Bear and I, we love to talk. We spend a lot of time on the deck lists, and y'all were waiting for the games, waiting to see who is going to win this, who is going to try to get stamp their ticket to the finals. So let's draw another one, just because you guys were so patient. And the winner of the second giveaway is Tortunbaiter.
Oh, the creator of our mighty bot. We are so glad to see it. And genuinely, we love you guys. We know we talk a lot. We're very passionate about what we do. And you guys are an amazing chat. And I've watched you chatting away. And we appreciate your understanding.
Alrighty. So, getting the stream set up. And
so I've got my question for you, J King. If you're Berto, do you roll your self-damage out again and back it?
I mean, I think I would bring my most aggressive deck. I think I would bring... you can't bring the air deck. I think I'd bring the Japan-US. Your opponent has 3 control decks. If I recall, are all 3 odd? I think they're all 3 odd control decks. So they're going to have less consistent early game.
They are indeed. Killswitch only brought 1 even deck.
And, oh great, now OBS is matching both of them.
Well, this is either the ultimate mirror match or we have a problem.
Alright, I'm gonna quickly try to fix things in OBS while the matches are going on, but Killswitch is in fact bringing his German-Britain discard versus Berto Burrito's
Soviet
Yes.
jet deck, Soviet allied jet deck. So I mean, yeah, Berto doing exactly what you thought, bringing a really aggressive, powerful deck. And trying to get that tempo back in the match, which I like. And I had to put you on the spot because hey, that's half the fun of being able to do this. Is how much do you back yourself? I agree. I think it's the smart call is to go with something that you have a chance to get an aggressive win, and hopefully we'll be able to get back to it. But hey, we've said it before. We'll say it again. Spectator mode is not the most reliable tool to use in the history of the world.
And okay, we should be getting back into it. Now I just have to pull.
Press all the buttons except the stop stream one because I don't think people would appreciate. I would love to give you a running commentary, but I also can't. We are struggling to see things now. Now we have. Wow. Okay, no, we're back.
Here we go.
I think we're here.
All right, technical difficulties resolved, and we have a very aggressive start here from Berto Burrito.
I'm gonna say, yeah, Berto's gotten off to a really strong start. Those 2 554th. He's got that. He's got war production loitering in hand, which is big.
Oh,
Nakshu's a great top deck, though. That Nakshu could become a massive value train right now.
And if he draws a Jaeger off of this first Jaeger's draw,
Yeah.
doesn't hit the Flampanzer.
Yeah.
Very few cards in his deck he could have drawn to play.
Yeah, but turn. Jaeger would have been insane, yeah. Yeah,
Berto wants to save that war production for the jet.
Yeah, I kind of like the verbal Vin play there. Just get it forward because you need that war production because you're going to need that jet pace. I do. Schutzen sitting in hand as you're coming towards being able to play jet is also a really, really useful thing. That little promotion damage ping from Schutzen can be so huge in a jet deck.
If I'm kill switch here, I would actually like to see the Nebelwerfer come out here.
Yeah, I tend to agree because you can pop the ping, can't you? Which is good value.
Yeah, and where I prefer it over Flampanzer is if your opponent is going to jet next turn, they don't have the credit to operate the Whirlwind.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to see the full mulligan, but I'm assuming Berto kept at least one of these cards in his opening hand. Oh, the second war production top deck. Worst draw in his deck.
I mean, the thing is, you're playing jet, it can happen. Sometimes you've just got to eat it.
Yeah.
It's not great. You don't want to see it. But the jet's down.
And that's a second jet from the deck removed, along with the Heindel and the shifting attack.
Shifting attack's gone. Oh, that's not the discard you want to see if you're Berto.
No, it is not. But if you kill switch here, how do you best respond to this? There's nothing you can do to kill jet this turn, which means you are guaranteed to take another 5 to your face with no guard or healing in hand.
I mean, honestly, if it's me, I'm seriously considering putting down that supply shortage right now just to get the clock ticking. I like the supply shortage. I know you could trade out the Flampanzer and then try and get some more position, but you have nothing that's really gaining you anything. And the sooner you can get that jet off the board, but I mean, you've got to find a way.
I think I like trading out the Nebelwerfer, or trading out the Whirlwind, sorry, and then playing Nebelwerfer on jet, because that's creating another body your opponent has to answer, and they're not going to trade jet into it. And then on the following turn, if it sticks, you can attack the jet, play supply shortage, and go.
Of course, Killswitch also can't see that there's Schutzen in hand, which is a relevant thing here too.
Yeah.
Because the fact, in many ways, the fact that he couldn't push up the double Schutz, that's strong for Berto. Like, I know Berto has a huge card disadvantage right now, but do not underestimate how strong that hand is.
And actually, I really like this MEBF choice by Killswitch, because this survives through, like, say, a top deck 35T.
It really does.
Or a Whirlwind, whereas the Nebelwerfer doesn't. The Nebelwerfer could have been simply just traded out. This way he guarantees the jet kill. He can cheat out 3 additional credits this turn.
Yep. If he sequences this right, this could be huge.
So yeah, he can Nebelwerfer the Jet, trade out with the MEBF,
Yeah.
which gives him a draw and 3 extra credits. So he goes up to 3 credits, and then I guess you trade Flampanzer
Yeah, I would have thought. And
into.
then, I mean, you're floating one, but you don't really mind, and that puts you in
Oh,
about as good.
yeah,
Oh, that's not small.
yep. That gets you another body on the board. Gets you 1 card deeper in the deck. You just play it on your Flampanzer, run it in. It does give your opponent a Schützen target, but it means 4
I mean, it
non-going
also
phase.
though it does let you, if you're going to trade the Flampanzer, it lets you proc a draw at some point as well, which is not small either. Um,
I think we.
that said, I mean, Berto's got. Oh, I mean, there's some very. The big question here is what do you take out with your Hudson?
I think if you're Berto, you are absolutely trading here. You're not just going face.
Mm.
Um,
No, I mean you have to because that's the value of Schutzen, isn't it? If you get that trade and Schutzen lives, it's lethal. Um, so he's gonna have Killswitch will have to answer it. I would like to see him kind of. I think I'd like to see him actually just get rid of the Flampanzer, but he's gonna go for the Marder.
I really like this
There's
choice by the Martyr because it's limiting the credits Killswitch has access to. Because now Killswitch can double trade into one of the Schützens, and he still has the credits for the Wolf Pack. But now he can't also. He doesn't have like an additional credit on top of that. He's also not drawing cards on top of that. Um,
it's true.
but he is taking out the front line.
Yeah. I mean, he kind of has to. I mean, he has to. He knows what he has to do. He's just got to sequence it the way that he wants to sequence it. But he has to just clear it out. And then hope he can find a way back because this is. I mean, even with the card advantage that he's got, this is not a good place to be. Um, there is one more jet loitering in this deck.
Yep, there's also Comet, which will always be a huge
Yeah.
draw. Schützen gets discarded. Third war production picked up. You do not want to see that. The question is, will he play it to play around MI5 or keep it to play around a discard hitting, say, this counter measure that he's trying to pick here? And we can. Okay, I was about to pull up the options here, but he takes Stranglehold. Clearly did not get any draw option. No Night Hunters.
No. But I kind of like holding on to this to make discard less painful potentially. He knows how much Killswitch is going to enjoy that option. I mean, the obvious tempo play for Killswitch here is MI5.
I think
He doesn't know what's in hand.
Yeah, you definitely start with MI5 regardless of what you're doing this turn. He's worried about Lightning Strike, actually. If he played with MI5 and it was Lightning Strike, he just immediately dies.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And if he plays this and it's the Spoils of War, not Spoils of War, the Foiled Plans,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's really in a
And it's
pickle.
the
He has
same
to take
problem.
some risk.
Yeah.
He sees no Spoiled Plans.
Yeah. And he's now. I mean, that hurts if you're Berto. That's really, really eating into your ability. That's basically removed an entire turn for you. Decent hand of cards. I kind of am I liking just going aggressive with the 20 Panzer Grenadier here?
Yeah, you've seen both Schützens, so you know you don't have to
Yeah.
be worried about.
There's nothing popping out to get that 3 damage.
Do you play around Stranglehold by pushing up a Wirbelwind and
I
then
think
playing Panzergren?
it depends on how switched on you are. I think it's. I would want to believe that Killswitch is good enough to think to do that, but he's going to take the attack, and I think that's. I do get why he did it, but I would have liked to have seen that push up because you know Stranglehold's a thing, and at least then you're not going to get anything that can just pop out straight to you. But I mean, your two big threats, Berto doesn't care whether you've got the front line or not, and you can't pop a guard.
I guess your thought process is there's 2 cards in my opponent's deck that deal 4 or more, and it doesn't matter about the front line. And then there's some cards in his deck that deal 2, and those do matter about the front line.
The Yagged bomber is an interesting.
And now he picks up the Lightning Strike.
Oh,
Will Killswitch play around this?
Yeah, this
If
is
he could
dangerous
even die
territory.
this turn if he plays the martyr, or the martyr or the MEBF. He has two options to draw here in his hand. Um there's also the Jaeger in hand. There's so many tempting draw options right here for kill switch.
Yeah. I like going hard face first and then playing Nakshub, firing the uh, artillery to proc the extra credit from Nakshub, but I'm not sure I like.
Yeah, I mean, you also want to play around a second Stranglehold. There's so many
Yeah,
countermeasures in the pool here that
yeah. I mean, Stranglehold would be bad, yeah, but I mean, again, if it's the only card your opponent's holding, you don't mind that much because they have to top deck to win, which is why I'd like to see honestly, I'd like to see face first because you want to play around it. Then I'd like to see the Nakshub, but we'll see.
yeah. You also want to
And
play around retaliation, which he's
yeah,
not going to do. If you're Berto, you are mauling. Because if you got retaliation off this, you won. If you got lightning strike off
yeah.
the previous one, you won. There's going to be another
Oh, it's
countermeasure here.
another off Claren.
And
Oh,
here are the
kill
options:
switch is
Stranglehold, Careless Talk, Retaliation.
retaliation. Oh, kill switch is not gonna like seeing yet another Alf Claren coming down.
He takes the Retaliation. And based on
Because
how
one,
Killswitch has been trying to work his way through these, I don't think Killswitch is getting his way through this puzzle put forward by these countermeasures as accurately as he needs to win the game on this close a margin. He's on 4 health. He
I
cannot
am
make any mistakes. And I, frankly, despite how good of a position it looks for him, I don't know if I trust Killswitch in this position.
Yeah, and I will say one thing that is very relevant is that Alf Clarong makes countermeasures so much more difficult for tournament players because it doesn't matter that this is open deck lists because you don't get to see what they're picking from. And you've got to be so very careful here. I want to believe, I really want to believe that Killswitch is good enough, but one mistake here and it's game.
And also, it's very important to remember Offclawing is a card that has come out and come into popularity since Killswitch started playing, or sort of stepped back from competitive play. This is not a
From
card he
playing,
has
yeah.
a ton of familiarity with. He's not been grinding matches
Mm.
against this. And
You can see him thinking his line so hard here. Pack strike. There.
and he gets through. He's down to Birdo to 1. 35 T top deck is lethal. He
Oh,
doesn't go for it. If Killswitch could still throw this game. If he kills the 1/1, if he's trying to play around something for some reason, he could still lose, but he's just going to attack face. He says, you know what, if it was retaliation, you held it up last turn. He takes
yeah.
game 2, and once again, Birdo drops to a 2-0 deficit.
Yeah. Second of his sets in which this has happened, I believe. And like we said earlier, this is the big test, and everyone knows how much I love to talk about the mind game in this. This is the big test of your mettle as a player because these are two really rough matches to lose. These aren't easy losses to take either.
No, not at all. In game 1, you felt like, it was the perfect matchup. My opponent got the perfect draws. And in game 2, from Birdo's perspective, Birdo knows what cards he could have gotten off these off-clawings. He knows that if he had gotten certain cards, he just won the game. He just simply
Yeah,
won the game because his opponent wasn't properly playing around. He also won the game if he just drew Comet or a Panzer H into Comet, um, or the third Jet. He had draws for lethal. He had develops for lethal,
yeah,
and he feels like, you know what, I should have gotten across the line, and my opponent didn't properly play around the countermeasures I could have gotten but were not offered. And if I'm Birdo, I am mauled in. But the question is he going to be able to overcome that, just the mental pressure that puts you under?
yeah. I'm not that person as a general rule. As many of you will know, I'm incredibly clinical and mathematical about the way I approach things. I've played a lot of poker and other stuff and chess, which is very mathematical. But sometimes when you're playing a game like this, you do feel like your deck and the draw and the heart of the cards might just be betraying you, and it can get in your head so hard because Berto really had to believe that his deck had a decent chance of giving him the win there, and it just would not offer it up. And as you say, Killswitch did not play perfectly.
Yeah, I think that's honestly a little harder to come back from than, personally speaking, um, when you play tournaments, you're gonna have games, or just playing on ladder, you're gonna have games where you feel like your opponent got really lucky, and that's frustrating. But what's so much more frustrating is when you can see mistakes your opponent made, like literally game-losing mistakes your opponent makes,
Thanks, yeah.
and you can't punish that, and then you lose the game anyways, because that gets to you. Because it's more than just like, oh, my opponent, we both played perfectly, he got lucky, he won, whatever, we move on.
Yeah.
It's my opponent didn't play perfectly, and then he got lucky and won anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I've been that person in an auditorium full of people playing in a top end match in physical card games, and I've legitimately between games had to walk out the room and find air because it really does. It just eats your head because you it's that. But how much did your opponent, not necessarily from your perspective, deserve that win?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at the end of the day, 99% of the time, you're going to feel like you didn't make many mistakes. Like, even if you did, most people in the moment won't realize they've made a mistake, because if you realized it was a mistake, you wouldn't have made that play.
In the first place, yeah.
So most of the time, you're going to finish a match, and like if you lose it, most of the time you're going to say, you know what, I didn't make any mistakes to lose that game, but things happen. But when you see your opponent make mistakes to lose a game, oh, that gets you. But enough of that. Let's get into let's do another entry and then get into game 3 and see if Berto can bounce back from that. We've never seen a 3-0 lead for anybody in this series. We've seen several 2-0 leads, and Berto's been on the receiving end of 2 of them.
Yeah.
But we've never seen a 3-0 lead, so statistically, Berto should bounce back here. The variance evens out across a larger sample size, so let's pull another giveaway. And the winner of this giveaway is going to be Bloodrow. Bloodrow.
Congratulations.
So yeah, congratulations. 150 gold in the form of a code will be headed your way after the stream. But let's notify the players that they are ready to jump, or they are ready. We are ready for them to jump into game 3. And
this is a big game 3.
It's also important to note here, I think Killswitch has 2 wins, but I think he has 1 on his 2 best decks. I think his best deck was banned, and then his second best deck got a win, and then his third best deck got a win. So it is really looking like we are into a situation where it's going to start to struggle to get...
it's the Soviet France control deck, so this is going to be very interesting.
I love this call out from Berto. Again, I think this choice of deck is just saying, you know what, you have 2 control decks left. I don't think your 2 control decks you have left are that well built. And even if they are, I'm not going to risk just getting blown out by a lucky high roll. I'm just going to bring my super heavy, potentially heavy with, if he wants to just go very deep on these spy rings. This deck is capable of generating more value than either of Killswitch's decks. This is probably his best matchup into these lists. So he's just going to get that spy ring ramp. He's going to try to get a win, get on the board, and then once that mental is reset, start getting into some of those control versus aggressive decks.
Yep, I would agree with that. I agree with you. I think Berto's, again, super smart with the choices and has got a really good starting hand, actually. I don't mind that starting hand at all. Spyring's going to be huge in this because there are a lot of things that you can get off this that can be very, very useful into this matchup. Bryansk is also a really good draw.
This is going to be quite fun because this is a odd Soviet control versus even Soviet control. This is like really the only time this series that we are going to have 2 different approaches to the same archetype. Now, obviously, they're running different allies. They're running very different card pools in these lists. Well, they have to be running different card pools based on the way they're building their decks. But they're both trying to do very different things, but both with Soviet control.
Yeah. I really like Berto's play sequence here. He's relying on it. He's got the ramp going. He's got that down, answered the Cossacks. Yeah, okay, defend in depth is a thing that you know is around, but he's smart. He's played down. He knows he's only got 5 cards in hand.
And I really like this from Killswitch. He's just saying, you're ramping, your deck's going to be playing a lot of orders. I'm just going to put the pressure on you. Get an Algerians to the front line, get a Cossacks to the front line, start chipping away at this Bryansk.
I mean, he's also backing the fact, do not miss the fact that he has got Winter Warfare in hand, which means he can clear that Bryansk and drop 8 damage.
Yeah, it's forcing Berto into a really awkward position because Berto's an
Yeah.
even deck with even credits, and he wants to get that Bryansk attack so it can't be picked off by a sickle.
Yeah.
But that's going to throw off his curve. It prevents the 845th, it prevents the heroes, it prevents the spy ring. But the Hour of Need is going to give Berto access to his entire hand
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah, it's interesting because that's nice to see. I like this. I really do. I think that's a good, smart play. Red Banner. I called it out at the beginning. I think that's a very strong use of Red Banner because look what you get out of it.
He most likely was looking for the 272nd. This
Yeah.
is actually kind of an unfortunate hit for him. It's a 50-50 whether he gets this unit or the 272nd. He is
Second, yeah.
much preferring the 272nd because Killswitch with the odd package doesn't have partisans. He doesn't have
Yeah.
minority recruits or anything like this. There's no way to steal that unit. So instead, he's just simply going to have to answer it with removal, and it's far easier to answer a 7-7 with removal than it is a 6-6 that summons us 8-8.
Yep, I completely agree. This is not the hit he wanted. It's still not bad, but he still gets 3 units out of it. But I completely agree. It's 50-50, and you have to be ready to take basically the low roll. I do like the KV in hand is nice to see as well. Berto, I think, needs to play very carefully. I think Berto also needs to keep his hand low. He knows the risk that is posed by defend in depth.
Here
I
for
think that can really affect you as a ramp player because it means sometimes you're going to have to make some suboptimal plays. I love this Depths of Winter.
Personally, I'm not a fan. I think the cavalry regiments in the support line are not offering any threats. Obviously, there's the worry of I suppose like a Ural regiment, but no matter what or Ural factories, but no matter what 7 drop you get out of it, it will die Depths of Winter on the following turn. The Rima's offering guard to stop the T-34, or yeah, it's a T-34. I would
Mm.
have rather just see maybe even a defend in depth coming out here. Try to bait Berto onto the board a little bit more. Or at the very least make him push the units to the front line to actually put you under pressure, and then the depths come out. Now, Berto certainly would not have played Corson and KV if Depths of Winter had not been played last turn. He makes this play because he sees the removal come out. Now he
It's
thinks
true.
it's safe to go wider. But this is sort of the issue: is you weren't under a lot of threat last turn, and now you've given your opponent the heads up that you know what, you can just dump as much as you want on the board because I have dropped the removal, and this is looking quite rough. You can kill the KV this turn. It's not.
You
It's not
can.
pretty.
No, it's an ugly, ugly ass way to do it, but you can. You don't like it, but then I wonder, do you kind of have to? Um,
Oh, regardless, I think he
Row?
needs to play defendant depth this turn because Berto's hand is not going to be getting any bigger.
No, I don't like. I do not like that play. I outright. You see, when you see your opponent with that many credits, you're now losing value, and Firebomb hurts so bad here. But you're losing value on that defend in depth constantly. I'd love to see Spyring. Yep, there it goes.
And
Oh, it's the US research as well.
yeah, that's. I don't think there's a way for Killswitch to come back with the odd choice. With the the odd choice with the odd deck. That means he's not going to have access to the Call to the Colonies for healing, even
Yep.
if you were able to answer this board. Which he can take out the Corson, but KV's staying, and it makes those sickles in hand a lot worse. Um,
Yep.
you just needed to do this last turn because you've given the KV 5 extra damage, and you would give anything to have 5 extra health in this position right now.
Yeah, I mean, legitimately, we have to call it the way we see it, and we have to call out what I would consider to be a misplay. Oh, that has to feel bad. Oh, the fireball.
Yeah, and if
That's going to be handy because
Bird
that's
just
going
gonna
to answer.
develop research
Yeah.
twice and say, how do I lose this game?
Yeah, I mean, he's sat there going, you better have an answer. Oh no. Oh, kill switch.
If
No.
the first sickle draws defended depth, you're not
I mean,
dead.
it's all he's got. It's literally all he's got.
And that's just game. Confusion is a card he
Yeah,
can't play, which means Sickle is
yeah,
going to kill him, and Berto bounces back, and we will once again
yeah.
not be seeing any 3-0 victories, or 3-0 leads, I should say.
Berto played that beautifully as well. One play I liked that you didn't from Killswitch, one play from Killswitch we both weren't convinced about at all, and I think really, actually, honestly cost him that game.
Yeah, and I think this also might be the nerves getting to Killswitch. He knows he needs to win this game. He knows he's up against Berto Burrito, who just name recognition is like the most strongest opponent he has, just based on past results. And yeah, there's a lot of pressure riding on Killswitch here. That last game, we saw it like from Berto's perspective, we're looking at it as like, oh, you're drawing these countermeasures, your opponent's you're not getting the ones you want, and your opponent manages to get his way through them, if somewhat awkwardly. But from Killswitch's perspective, you are stressing out. You're seeing the off-clungs come out. You're probably going to cards.com looking at what countermeasures are in the pool.
Yeah.
Are there any countermeasures that were released that I'm unaware of? Like what things can get pulled out of this, and it's super awkward. You managed to make it through it. He's probably sweating buckets. So if he makes a few mistakes here in game 3, I think I mean, it's a lot easy. It's very easy to criticize from sitting here in the captain seat.
100%. Like, I will legitimately say I have nothing but respect for every player in this tournament. I think they are some of the very, very best in the world. But that was a big win for Berto. Psychologically, that is a big win. You feel like your deck choice paid off. And once again, he read what his opponent was likely to do.
And it's also worth pointing out that is, we mentioned it in the deck stage, that is the deck that he couldn't get the win on in the previous series. So getting that, like, you're down 2-1, but you have just that deck through, and obviously the way lineups match up now, that deck's probably not Berto's like weak deck in his lineup. Particularly with Killswitch being left with these two control decks. That was his best matchup against those two decks, but you're feeling just pretty happy about this. You know, you didn't just hit a brick hand, you didn't get rolled over.
No.
And yeah, you simply got an easy win, a win you didn't have to think that much about. You just simply, you did a mulligan, you played the cards as you got them, and you won the game because it was a better matchup.
And honestly, when you've just had that nasty 2-0, that is a big thing to be able to have. Call out Karmakata, thank you so much. Whether through yourself or through 1939, the subs are massively appreciated. The hype train on these streams is great to see. But yeah, that for Berto being able to feel, it's what I call an armchair feel of a game. You can just sit back and be comfortable and be like, yeah, all I did was I played well, and that was good enough, and that can really help.
Yeah, and yeah, I will also say thank you very much, Karma, for the subs. The Twitch subs, Amazon Prime subs, donations. That's the stuff that makes these events possible. Because I mean, yeah, I'm a I'm a young person. I'm currently unemployed. It's not easy to make a tournament with a prize pool put up, but it's donations that really make this type of thing possible for me at the moment. So thank you very much. And let's do another giveaway draw before we get into the all-crucial Game 4. I know I've mentioned this many a time, but Game 4 in any best of 7, it is the most important game, and it will see Killswitch pull into a 3-1 lead, or it will see Berto Burrito tie it up. And we've never seen a 3-0 lead. We've never seen a 3-1 lead. The only time we've seen two-game leads have been at the very beginning, and it's always been neck and neck down the stretch here. So we'll see if Killswitch can break that trend, or if Berto will follow his trend of dropping it down 2 games early and tying it up and going into basically a best of 3. And the winner of the giveaway, 150 gold, is Taser Donut. So congratulations, Taser Donut. I will let the players know, and we will be doing the first big giveaway of the stream, 300 gold, after this all-important Game 4.
Is huge. It's always the crucible, like the crux point of these matches. You can't ever get away from Game 4 in best of 7 because it is that game.
Yeah, exactly.
It just does not matter. It doesn't matter where you're at. It is always pivotal. So let's see what we've got. So we've got So we got Soviet. Okay, so
It
Killswitch is sticking with the Soviet France. Yeah.
Yes, we have Killswitch on the bottom,
Killswitch
running his Soviet France
and
back again, and
Berto is leaning into self damage again. He's back on it, and I like this from Berto. He knows he needs to get a win on it.
normally I would say that's a good hand for a control matchup. You don't need the sickles or the winter warfares early. Except the 39th probably not going to be great this matchup unless there's Zukov in Killswitch's hand, which he most
Yeah.
likely keeps, pulls, and engineers. There's no Bryansk, there's no 2-drops of any variety, and this is going to be an odd Soviet mirror, and funny it works out that way because this is quite an odd matchup because it's not really a mirror
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form. It is a much more aggressive Soviet Japan self damage from Berto at the top of your screen versus a much more slow controlling.
Yeah, I am going to put you on the spot because this is a fascinating match, and you know this game so well. Who do you give the edge to in this matchup?
I think it will come down to, does Killswitch find Depths of Winter again? Um, Berto, it's going to be difficult for Berto to discount these 34ths. The 4-4 Zukov is quite good. I would actually be interested to see him hold that back. Maybe from Killswitch, play out a Petlyakov. It stops the SU from
Mm.
self-damaging. It's always very awkward in this position because look you look at it like, do I want to play a high health unit so my opponent can't remove it with a single Red Dawn? But also, if I play a high health unit, it gives my opponent more targets for more self damage cards if they have a lot in their hand. Like if I play a Petlyakov, is it gonna let them do like sickle Red Dawn, and then the next turn they're dropping 3/34ths and I've lost the game?
Yeah, I mean, surreally for me, Sankhya Myun is not the card I really want to be seeing right now if I'm Killswitch. It's too tempting a target, but so that's a huge play as well, Berto. That's a big statement play because now he's got his draw engine on board.
Yeah,
He's got good hand advantage here, so this is where Killswitch needs to be super careful.
that stand together is also a very important pickup because that is a
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed KV2 for Berto if
Too.
he plays it on the 34th.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an incredibly difficult unit for Killswitch to remove because,
Yeah, the other thing is, I will say, Killswitch has stepped back for a while. I don't know how familiar Killswitch will be with the new KV2, because that new KV2 change, that is a
that,
beast of a unit to
yeah,
deal with.
he'll be familiar with getting KVs from stand together, but yeah, if he
Hmm.
is familiar with the new text, if he thinks it's simply just, oh, it's a buff, the op cost got reduced and the
Yeah,
attack got raised, and then he drops a defend in depth into it, and then, oh wait, that didn't kill
misses that heck.
it.
Yeah, that could be devastating. Just an interesting call out when you have had someone who's been away for a while and you've had such a big change to the KV2 because that text is not small.
And
Um,
I mean,
not.
he looks like he's.
I like this.
Sorry, you can go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like this. I like farming for the single draw, but then also getting the discount while you can off of those Cossacks. I think that's a clean play. Uh, I'd almost. You see, I'd almost have been tempted actually to have just sickle Red Dawn the Petliakov.
Yeah, it gets your guys discounted. Um,
And it's not like Killswitch has got a huge amount that he's going to be aggressively pushing up that you can't deal with.
yeah, kill switch here. He can just simply drop train. The sickle Red Dawn will come out on the following turn. It can take Petlikov out, and then you can get down both 34ths. I guess the idea is he wants kill switch to commit more to the board to prevent just a depth of winter. Because if there's, two 34ths and a train and a Petliakov on board, Depth of Winter is sort of harming both decks quite a bit. But, if the board is Recon and the 1K Elite and two 34ths versus nothing, suddenly Depth of Winter is just an amazing card, which is taking out two
Yeah.
threats and denying two draw.
I tend to agree. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think see Depths of Winter, of course, appearing. Um,
Yeah, appeared in the probably the wrong player's hand here. I mean,
Yeah, it's. I don't think Berto wants to see it as badly as Killswitch does right now. Is there a point at which you seriously consider just using that 39th to get any value at all out of anything? Because how many targets are you ever gonna see?
that's
Um,
a fair question. Um, we're going for the
I
pretty
like this though.
straightforward
Yeah,
line here. Just get the extra draw,
yeah.
draw first, so in case you draw into another 34th, it reduces the cost. And we see a second Depths of Winter top deck, this time from Killswitch, and I think you just slam it.
That Yeah, I do. Killswitch is showing a lot of discipline here, not literally just windmill slamming that Depths of Winter onto the board.
I suppose there's an argument that Depth of Winter is dealing 6 damage. Or not, sorry, not Depth of Winter. Defend in Depth is dealing 6 damage. Probably for the only time this game, you could take the 6 damage, remove one of these guys with that removal, and play down a 2/6, try
Yeah.
to bait
In fairness, it
more
is
onto
also
the board.
important to it's important to note that the guards, you really do not want to push the guards up and stand together them straight away. That is a very suboptimal way to proc that self damage. You really want to be able to swing then stand together. So I actually do like. I personally would consider the guard version of the other unit, but I do like the I love the defend in depth right now. I think you get the value while you can get the value. Berto's already shown you he knows how to empty out a hand against this.
Yeah, and
Is that a missed opportunity that Killswitch is going to live to regret?
yeah, I don't like this. You're putting resources onto a board that you want to clear with a symmetrical board clear, and you're also giving the opponent, you're spending your credits to give your opponent the card to draw that you would like to deny with said board clear,
Yeah.
while not removing the big threats. Now, granted, the big threats are in the support line, and by making your opponent draw, your opponent's almost certainly not going to dump enough cards from hand where Defend in Depth is not going to trigger.
I love the Shibata here. That's nice. That's I like that. I like seeing that come down. Killswitch has got some very difficult questions to answer, but Berto has left himself. There are 7 cards in hand, so one of these things can just be straight up removed.
Killswitch can
Actually, Killswitch could sickle defend in depth. Can he? I suppose he could, in theory, actually clear. Yeah, because he can sickle defend in depth, trade the Algerians, and clear them both out. No, not quite.
Yeah,
He's a credit short.
If I recall correctly, Algerians is +2 attack for non-French units, and I've never had that come up, but it does actually prevent the full clear here, because otherwise he would be able to drop the 51st in Blitz.
Yeah, the 51st doesn't help you right now because it can't get the benefit. The defend in depth, I think you have to play.
Absolutely.
You can't not do this.
I think you could consider sickling the 34th, because that's going to prevent your opponent from from trading into the train for the damage before stand together.
That's kind of the thing I was hoping with the line I had. I would have liked to have seen the sickle come down, but we'll see how this plays out. Another 34th guards in hand is nice to have for later, but there's not a lot of ways to reduce that right now.
And also, because he roped out, I think he sort of saw the cards he wanted to play. I want to do Defend in Depth. I want to play the 51st. Is there anything better? And he waited until the very end of his turn to be like, no, that is the best line. But because of that, he misplaced where the 51st is on the board, which means that there's not going to be that extra attack on the armored train, which could actually turn out to be somewhat relevant here. Once the stand together comes out.
It's about to, unfortunately, be huge because that KV really doesn't care about. I do like the Berto's play of the Petliarkov here. He knows that there are deployment effects that he'd rather not see. BM can't help you. Algerians.
Double Algerians is going to pop off.
This is a big moment, but it's still one short. He has got the sickle.
Oh, and he can't sickle because the heavy armor stops the sickle damage. Is this where Killswitch...
moment?
He has the BM in hand.
Yeah. Does Killswitch realize this? That's the thing. Does he know the text of this new unit?
He also knows his opponent
Mm.
doesn't have any way to heal this, so he could just
Yeah.
hit the KV and then slam the BM, kill the Petliakov, um,
And yeah.
and then just leave him with a 7-1. I have a guard. You're not getting through a
Yeah.
2-6 guard.
Oh, please don't misplay this.
He's looks like he's pointing at the Petliakov, so it looks like he knows.
That's okay. It's fine. I was just having a moment where I'm like, I would hate to see that because that would sting. Um,
He actually could have full cleared the Petliakov and the KV by sacrificing a Algerians without playing the sickle. If he hits it down to 1 health, he plays the BM, kills the Petliakov because the BM is going to be a 6-2, and then you trade out the 3-2 Algerian into the 1 health KV.
Yeah, your issue now is that Petliakov is looking at that BM and that's
If you're Berto, do you just slam strategic focus for ground units?
I mean, why not? You get a card off of the 33rd. The Shibata's not doing anything for you. Your Petliakov stays on the board. I think that would be a very strong play from Berto. Would be making a statement with that play. I'm hoping the constantly flashing light is not a sign that we've got a disconnect. But yeah, I like this as a play if Berto does this. This is a big play that says, do you know what? I'm just going to take a massive tempo advantage.
Yeah, and he doesn't go for it. We saw him hovering over the card, but he decides not to. So he definitely saw the line. If he drew any other card other than Red Dawn, I think he would have gone for it. But the Red Dawn allows him to take out the BM and develop the board without having to drop the strategic focus.
And I mean, we will all say endlessly, getting rid of that BM is something you always want to do because it is one of the most irritating cards to deal with in the game.
The Night Witch's top deck here is actually kind of huge for Killswitch for just being able to generate more value. But the question is, do you want to just slam Depth of Winter here?
Do you want to? Yes. Is it the right play? I'm not sure. I'm not sure that Night Witches might not be the smarter play right now. Like, Berto doesn't have a lot of reach on the board outside of the Petliakov.
The issue...
And getting all of that removal value from these Night Witches could be huge.
The issue I see with this is you're taking the damage from the Shibata, and if your opponent just simply ignores the Night Witches and goes face, there's no fighters to trade them into to guarantee it. And then, once they're on the board, it makes Depths of Winter essentially impossible to play until your opponent has killed these Petliakovs. And if Berto just simply says, you know what, I don't care, I'm not giving you the From the People, because this Algerian is going to die one way or another.
Yeah. This looks nice, but Berto is not leaving this Algerian on the board.
Yeah, there's the first Winter Warfare draw.
I mean, I don't know. For me, again, is it worth as Berto thinking about strat focus for ground units? No, the guards annoyingly got 1 extra health.
How crazy would it be to just do strat bombing for air units, or strategic focus for air units here? Because you have the Shibata still on board.
It's true. I mean,
get the 2-6 trade, and then that means you have a 6-4, which is awkward with the double From the People.
Or is he good? He's going for a more conventional trade, but I don't think that would have been the craziest thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah, just say I'm going to win on value rather than trying to win immediately on board.
I mean, you do have to be aware, and I'll point this out for chat, Berto 9 HQ defense, he does not have a lot he can do about that. And he's going to have to answer those Night Witches sooner rather than later. As right now, honestly, Killswitch could just rip 3 straight damage into HQ, go you're on 6 HQ, and then do whatever he wants with the rest of his hand.
Killswitch here, he can Confucian the Recon for the draw.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like playing it first, because it draws first, but you're also taking the 2 damage from the Shibata.
Yeah, that's my thing. I would much rather see, if you're going to do this, maybe use the Petliakovs to remove the Shibata.
I guess the idea is he wants to remove one of the Petliakovs, and this is the only way to do that. And
sorry, I mean the Polycarpovs, obviously, but yeah. The 52k is not a small draw here. Oh, this is gonna sting if you're Berto.
Well, its deployment effect will be actually stopped, but I mean, you
Oh,
still
of
just
course, the
slam it down.
Petliarkov. He didn't get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's literally everybody. Whenever there's a Petliakov on the board, you like draw a great deployment effect. And you're like, that's huge, and then you're like, oh wait, that doesn't do anything. Oh,
I see
parade into the fourth,
Parade.
34th guards.
Oh,
Absolutely disgusting from Berto here.
this thing. Yeah. I called it. I love Parade as a card, but it is brutal. It's so powerful.
And that's just every large unit in his deck in his hand. All four
Yep.
34ths, the recon, or the
Yeah.
39th, and the armored train. Every big unit in his deck, and then what's left in his deck is just going to be drawing like Shabatas or Sickles.
I mean,
And
you've got to love it, haven't you? Because you're like you're 10 credits going into 11, and you have your end game in your hand. Everything you draw is going to give you options of getting discounts on it. That armored train is going to be an important moment to consider the drop for as well. But I
that
still, again, these Polycarpovs need answering.
that Winter Warfare is massive because it actually lets you remove your own Polycarpovs here and clear out the entire board. And if you're kill switching,
No,
they can just like
literally, if you sequence this right, this could be a huge clear turn. Um, yeah. I mean, I like putting this 1 point of damage on the Petliarkov, then Winter Warfare, and then going goodbye board.
I mean, I think you have. I would like to see killing the Shabata just to save 2 health here.
True.
The Winter Warfare will damage the Petliakov down to 3 health,
It's true.
regardless.
It brings it down anyway, doesn't it? So yeah, the Shibata's probably the best. See, you being smarter than me again, damn you. Um,
Yeah, this.
that's a good. I mean, ultimately, he's still. I mean, please look, by the way, chat at the health totals
Yeah,
right now.
he
This is a proper Soviet control slugging match.
he took 2 extra damage and could have dealt 1 extra damage to Berto if he had attacked
Damage.
face.
Yep.
So if it comes down to that small margins, this was a game kill switch could have won. Now at the moment he still needs to do some steps to get there. If he's hand tracking, he now knows there's another 34th in hand. You know,
And
on
yeah.
deck list there's another stand together in deck, which would just immediately kill you. So you know it's not in hand, or Berto just missed lethal. Well, actually, no, he wouldn't have had the credits to do it that turn. But
Oh, hello. No.
do you just play ISU and get it on the board? Like, it's a 6/4 heavy armor too. It trades
Yeah,
with the 34th, and I think you just say you have second stand together, you win.
yeah. I mean, well, there's nothing you can do about it. If you've got it, you've got it. I can't do anything about that. But otherwise, if I put the ISU, I've at least given myself a fighting chance.
You can also, from the people, the 34th on board and play ISU, you're still dead to stand together because you know the parade, there's a
I mean,
5 cost.
what does your HQ defense matter right now? Because if he's got stand together, you're just dead.
Yeah, I think
This is hard though.
I think he's thinking,
gotta
do I want to, is from the people more valuable in hand, or is it worth trading out? Is it worth essentially turning into a hammer to trade out the 34th? He says, I'm going to leave 34th on board. Hello, Bear, and hello, everybody. I just had a blue screen, so getting everything turned back on.
No, it's all good. I'm just typing into chat.
Yeah, the stream is back on, so hopefully people will be coming back. Yeah, it's not difficult to get the stream going. It's going to be a bit more difficult to get the games back online.
Yeah.
We'll be trying to do so as quickly as possible here. Yeah, so for those as you're rejoining, unfortunately my computer just hit a blue screen. So we are working on that.
Yeah, we're gonna continue to try and make it all better. It's all a bit of a thing. J King's computer decided it really didn't like him today, and unfortunately, he's the running all the tech. So, I mean, we'd love to relay the play-by-play by any format right now, Killer Armor, but we need to get the client back up our end. That's the problem. We can't see the game either, folks.
Okay. I managed to get this up and running as quicker than I thought possible, and here is the current board state.
Oh, there we go. I'm.
Oh, sorry. Bear can't see the stream yet, but you guys can see the stream.
I can, because thankfully I have Twitch running. I just might be on a slight delay until the stream comes back up your end, but that's okay because we're streaming in different places. But I can.
All right, there we go.
There we go. We're back.
All right.
There we are.
So
love technology.
That took way less time than I thought, but here we are in a situation. Killswitch, he can remove the board in two different ways.
Yep. He's got to figure out which way he likes.
Kind of three different ways. He can do Depths of Winter and then Strategic Focus, both on the same turn.
Yeah, he actually has got the credits to do it. I mean, he doesn't need to, but he has got the credits to do it.
He decides to give Berto the card draw, which will draw him into the rest of his deck, basically. But also drop him to 4.
Yeah. So, I mean, Shibata's pretty good to drop because it slows the Petliakov can't be doing anything to you because you've got to get rid of Shibata right now. Oh, this is tense. This is not a fun place to be if you're a player on either side of this.
Yeah, if you're Berto, you are looking at, I just die, essentially. But again, it's that the second Stand Together sitting somewhere in that deck. It's no longer threatening immediate lethal, but it is certainly threatening. He could strategic
like
focus.
Zukov into Engineers. Depths kind of makes sense.
He can steal the 1/1 generated by the Depths of Winter, which
what
is quite funny.
Thinking, I mean, we said it earlier, didn't we? It's like, do you just pilfer the 1/1 at some point because you can? That Engineers is something Killswitch won't want to see because that's one of the very few ways that Berto can generate some healing.
And looking at a quick fatigue check, Berto has 8 cards left in deck. I
was about to ask if you had that data, because that's a thin-looking deck.
There's the Stand Together, there's the SU, there's the 39th. But beyond that, that's some meat. That is enough meat to end out this game versus an opponent at 8 health. But
yeah,
that's not a lot. And Killswitch, Killswitch has the Depths of Winter in hand.
Yeah, that's the thing. That Depths of Winter and timing it is going to be huge.
And Killswitch simply just passes.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of see why. Like, you're not under any immediate pressure right now. You know you've got the clear in hand. Yeah. Berto right now...
I would have liked to maybe see like a From the People come out on the Shibata. Maybe that's too risky because you know there's the SU still in deck. Just something that doesn't that telegraphs is slightly less like I have Depths of Winter in hand and I'm just waiting for you to put more units on board.
Stand Together.
Oh, but and Berto's playing it perfectly because Depths of Winter comes out.
Yep.
Killswitch takes 4.
Yep. Berto knows exactly what he's doing. That's very smart.
It's not technically lethal. Killswitch can do Depths of Winter, 97th, and then remove 2 of the guys in the front line. But no, then it's still lethal with...
It's still lethal,
he
right?
Takes it. He has to sickle into something bigger, a bigger guard. One of these 51sts, a Rima. There's a decent chunk of bigger guards left in deck. Okay, he finds the 51st, so he's not dead on board.
Yeah. I mean, this... If you're Berto right now, you're not minding this?
Oh, wait, but... No, because he can't Winter Warfare...
No. I think we just had a...
Wait.
Can he?
39th, take the 1/2, stand
Yep.
together, push up, hit the 2-6, trade in one of the 0-1s, the other one, the 0-1-1s into the guard with the 5-5 tank you get off 39th, hit the other one face to drop him to 2, and then drop double Winter Warfare.
Warfare, and you win.
That's exact credits. And if he hits a 5 attack tank, he wins. I don't know if it's the only, because he can hit an armored trade and it's over.
He could, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a strong line.
And
I love the fact that we're both calculating the same line. I'm sorry, chat, by the way, if we're over-engrossed with this, but we're both calculating the same lines right now.
Berto's going for it. It's a 2/3 chance to win. It's a 2 in 3 chance to win the game immediately.
He's got literally a 66.66%
He goes for it.
chance.
He gets it.
Gets it. Oh, that's huge.
And again, remember, Killswitch could have had 2 extra health of this game.
Yeah. 2 extra health would have left him on 2 right now.
And that's just, he wins the game from that position. Like, Berto just doesn't have enough to get across the line. That's literally the last cards in his deck in his hand.
Was the only way that Berto wins that, and man, that was tense. Chat, if you're not enjoying this, there is something wrong with you.
And
that was insane.
And that's what it comes down to, the tiniest margins. This is what I love about competitive cards, is just the tiniest margins can dictate who wins or loses a game. And in this case, it is going to be Berto winning the second in a row to tie up the series 2-2. He's through with both of his Soviet decks.
Yeah. Legitimately, you've got to say it, chat. We said in advance, be ready for a late one. These guys are going hard, and that Berto, big momentum shift in the match here. Berto going 2-0 down and coming back to tie up like that, and the way that he did that with such consistent, like after that one moment of just feeling like, man, if only I could have punished my opponent, then 2 games on the bounce now where you punished your opponent's tiniest mistakes, and that's what this last game, literally punishing that mistake, is why you won.
And if you're Berto, you're aware of that. You saw that, because that's some mistakes your opponent can't see because you could have done a different option in your hand and they don't see your hand. But that Berto on board can see him hitting the Petlyakov accomplished nothing. He could have either dealt 1 more damage face or healed 2 extra health. And to be fair, Killswitch could have put that 1 extra damage face and then still lost the game in the exact same way. And I'm not saying from that position it was abundantly clear that 2 health for you was more important than 1 damage to the opponent. But it's the fact that he specifically made the out of the 3 options, there were 2 that are sort of difficult to evaluate between, and then there was 1 wrong option. And he did the wrong option, and then he lost. And if you're Berto, that's going to make you feel amazing. If you're Killswitch and you remember that play, you see that moment, that's going to feel worse. There was also the armored train positioning with the 51st earlier on in the game.
There's just little things, and this is the moment where you have to be able to get that out of your head. Yeah. Because otherwise it will just eat away at you and take away from your concentration on what are now about to be some very important matches.
Exactly here. And once again, we are sticking with it, the trend of being tied 2-2 after Game 4 in every single set we have had. It's not just the Game 7 every set. We've been tied after 4 games in every single set. That's absolutely insane. And here, just looking at the decks we have left here, Berto has Jagro and Jet versus Killswitch, 2 somewhat questionable, can win but also can lose control lists. If I have to pick a best of 3 with these 2 lineups, I'm picking Berto 100% of the time. I think Berto is actually favored here. Now, he's gotten win on both his 2 Soviet decks. Those were his 2 decks that needed more specific matchups or maybe a bit more specific things to get across the line. The things he has left, he's very comfortable with. They're just 2 very, very solid standard decks for the format versus Killswitch. He has 2 control decks. He's already lost on one of them twice in a row. That's going to feel bad. Yeah, absolutely crazy. And to celebrate that crazy game forward, once again being tied after 4 games, and also to celebrate everybody coming back after the stream crash, we actually have more viewers now than before the crash, which is not typically how things work. Typically, if you
No.
turn your stream off at any point while streaming and then turn it back on, even immediately, you typically lose like a good chunk of your viewership. But you guys have bounced back
I was going to say, I've
strong.
taken one bio break in all of my streaming, and I lost like half my stream in the 1 minute it took me.
So let's pull back up the giveaway. So we're gonna do a 300 gold giveaway! Exclamation mark a giveaway to enter if you haven't already. And let's pull it. And the winner is Ketchup Pap 56. Congratulations, 300 gold. And you know what? We will pull another 150 gold giveaway now. Which will be going to Berlinoid. So congratulations, Berlinoid. Congratulations, Ketchup Pap, on the wins.
And congratulations, everyone, on maintaining any level of composure. I can see in chat, like, I will legitimately say, yeah, we are getting quite animated. I will say any criticisms and commentary do come with the understanding that we get the privilege that we have up here of just being able to sit back and watch this. I would not want to be either of these players right now.
Yeah. And, man, we saw the last match went really, really deep, went to Game 7. We started to see mistakes from both players just from a long, grueling match. Yeah. It's not just simply matches on the day, but it's also just the week. Like, every weekend, you have to sit down and play a best of 7 against one of the best players in the world. That is not easy to do. Here we go, getting into game 1.
No.
And there we have the opening hand. Jagro versus Britain. Killswitch is finally deciding I'm going to switch to the Britain deck. And, I mean, the Britain deck, it has guards, it has... I mean, it doesn't have Sickle. I almost wonder, like, if just sticking with the Soviet deck maybe would have given you a slightly better matchup, as slightly higher health guards.
Yeah, I mean, you can hope you can hope with playing as much intel as you are that you can build up some big enough guards to go. The hard thing here is always, do you keep the Tarnow or not? Because there's always that temptation for the value train later.
And I'd be shocked if he doesn't keep double Plan West, because, I mean, just the way the odd cost deck works. On turn 4, you can't play a 5-drop.
That's a mulligan I wasn't sure about, but it's not an easy call at all.
And OBS has decided to be angry at us and switch things around, so now Berto is on the bottom here. It will be fixed for the next match.
It's fine. Technology just hates us, chat. Think of it as revenge for the length of our intros. I don't know. There's a thing going on here, and technology has it in for us this evening.
From Berto's perspective, I'm a little surprised to see the Signal Regiment coming down. It feels like you know your opponent's not going to be doing anything.
So here's that For Freedom. It's not quite the Bicycle Boys, but that For Freedom is such a strong play early like this. That really, I like to see that. I'd like to see the 164th come down actually, but draw first.
Yeah,
for the 94. Yeah,
he doesn't want to overextend into the supply shortage, because that's sort of Killswitch's main AoE here. In this deck. Now, that being said, I'm looking for how many copies he's running, and am I missing it? Killswitch doesn't run supply shortage in this deck, actually.
You are correct. I think I am just checking the list myself, but I don't think he does. No, he does not run. He does not run supply shortage. He's relying entirely on getting his clears from Uprising.
That surprises me quite a lot with Berto's lines. Then if I were Berto and I saw my opponent has no supply shortage, and the only thing that really slows me down is going to be Kitty Hawk or Plan West, I would just be going as wide as possible, as quickly as possible, because my opponent can't clear my board until turn 5 minimum. So every unit I play is sticking on the board, and it's going to allow me to trade into guards. It's going to allow me to, keep frontline for expansion and stuff. The choice for going for this, for Freedom, the Signal Regiment, the expansions early, it feels like just a tempo loss. Now, that one of production order is going to lead to a turn
Yeah.
5 B24D, which we see Killswitch's hand. He has Sexton, he has Wrath Lightning. Um,
Yeah.
this is not the end of the world, but it is quite big.
Not small. It's, as you say, it is not world-ending, but it is not small. Um, this is another game that may turn on some very tiny margins, but we're going to be saying that all night, let's be honest.
Yeah, if you Killswitch right now, you are looking for that Uprising draw.
Yeah, you really need to see it because you want to have that clear for when you're going to need it.
The supply shortages are in the German-Britain discard deck. This is when these sort of the deck building restrictions sort of come in here. You have to decide how you're going to split things up if you want 2 decks with Britain.
Yeah.
But the Wrath Lightning here, bouncing the Bomber, it's probably just going to come back down, I would imagine, unless... Oh, the second Type 94, that's going to let him surprise attack, and that's going to come down on the Wrath.
Yeah, totally, you just like, no, I don't want to deal with it, and now I don't have to.
And, like, Sexton can pin the B24D once it hits the board, but it is currently threatening to just immediately deal 6 to the face.
Yeah, and 6 to the face is nearly half your HQ defense right now. Now it is half your HQ defense.
I think he's just going to start with the Orb, I would imagine. Or Research, maybe. Research is a bit more consistent.
Right, I was going to say, Research also gets him the draw, because, yeah, Research into Radar. He might go up Bliskavika.
He can tar now and get an immediate hit, but that's not answering... You're not blocking the Aichi. You're not blocking the B24D. A Kitty Hawk here.
I was going to say, things. Yeah, you're not blocking the Aichi, and you know your opponent has got the B24D in hand and has the discount from the 4-op cost from Signals.
He's going for it. There is a
50-50 yeah.
Oh, there's a 50-50 shot that increases the cost of the B24D to the point where it can't be played this turn, which I think is what he was going for. Unfortunately, he misses the 50-50.
Yeah. I mean, it does make a very unappealing looking 15th Cavalry.
Actually, it is a 50-50, right? The wording is increase the cost of a known card in the opponent's hand?
It is, yeah. Increase. Okay. I play that card enough to know it's one of my... as you know, I do like to play a little bit of Japan, Poland, Legions. Yeah, it is. It's a known card in hand.
Yeah, so that's an unfortunate roll there for... Berto here, and just...
Oh, that's not fun to see.
No, it is not. And here you can... I mean, Sexton, but then you die on board. You can... Royal Research.
Radar, but that takes you to 7, so that's not going to save you. You haven't got Bliskavika in hand.
You can do the 3k Orb, but looking at Berto's deck, there's... one naval supply run.
Yeah.
And that is everything else is expansions.
Yeah, so it's not that's my concern with Bliskavika. Bliskavika at the minute doesn't have a good enough target to save you, right? Unless I've missed something.
Yeah, Raiding Brigade, Kitty Hawk, but you're still dead on board.
Yeah. Oh,
shelling, but there's no way to draw for 2 credits. We've seen Monty already played this game. Avre's too expensive. Expansion does nothing. Raiding Brigade or Royal Research is still dead.
Getting you 1 HQ defense just feels mean.
And that's a surrender from Killswitch.
Yep. Oh, okie dokie.
We might be seeing our first game that doesn't go to 7. And it's a little bit early to say that, but I find it difficult to see Killswitch winning this series. And based on just, like, the amount of mental damage, you've lost 3 in a row. You've tried to switch decks up, it didn't work. You feel like you've made mistakes, you feel like your opponent is just an unstoppable force, and it's up against Jet. I think Berto is favored to win Game 6. And if he doesn't win Game 6, I think he's heavily favored to win one of the next 2 games. Yeah, this is unfortunate.
Despite my early prediction, I think the way that things have played out the psychology is changing the outcome of these lists. The remaining lists that are available, if you kill switch, you're not loving your current situation, because Berto is only needs to win one of these.
Yeah, and it's against Jet, the deck you would have liked to have banned. But Jet is capable of very hard low rolls.
I was going to say
remembers the high rolls, but
yeah, particularly in the case of the Soviet variant, which we did cover earlier, it does have some potential to brick out and really just hate you. I have on one notable occasion during the Jet meta, in fact, mulliganed myself into no less than all 4 copies of my one order in the deck, and cried quietly into my beer.
A fun story that I have with the Jet deck, because I brought 4 copies of War Production in, it wasn't a Jet deck, but a German-Soviet swag deck to Worlds, and I had a lot of people talk to me at Worlds, and they were talking about, like, oh, and you're practicing, like, you know, obviously this deck can high roll, but, like, how often are you just hitting the double War Production hands, or even the triple War Production hands? And I was like, you know what? I've played, like, 40 games on this deck in practice matches. I have not hit it a single time. I've never had 2 War Productions in hand a single time in 40 games. And then I played the deck, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times at Worlds. It never happened in Worlds. And then German-Soviet Jet was the meta afterwards. I didn't play a ton in that meta, but I think in like 150 games on German-Soviet Jet, or German-Soviet War Production decks, I think I had 2 War Production in hand once.
Yeah.
And it was in a ladder game towards the end of the meta. Now, granted, that's not because I'm, like, a genius at mulliganing. I'm just incredibly lucky. And that is going to be the level of luck that Berto is going to be trying to channel here into these remaining 2 games. And before we get into that Game 6 to see if Berto can try to make a crazy comeback, not just in this set, but also just in the tournament as a whole. Because, again, Berto lost his first 2 series. He went into this 0-2 if you're looking at exclusively the matches. And he's now, if he can win this with a 2-game margin, this is going to be a plus 3 point swing. If he wins this, that pushes him up to 1, tied with Innocent Bubbles. And that means if he wins this Game 6 and Baron beats Bubbles tomorrow, any score, Berto's guaranteed through.
Yep. This is huge. This is why this is going to be a very, very big Game 6, because the maths really matters here in this format. Berto would really prefer to get that early win and be the first person to actually stop this from going 7 games.
And you know what? Since I don't know if we're going to get a Game 7, let's do 2 more giveaways here. 1 normal, 1 large. So first, the normal giveaway is going to be going to Brett Pittler. So Brett Pittler, congratulations on winning the 150 gold giveaway. And now the 300 gold giveaway before what might be our last game that we see with Killswitch. It might be the last game we see with either of these players, because I think there's even a world where Berto wins this and then still doesn't advance. I'm not positive about the math there. But 300 gold giveaway is going to be going to Enrico75 Slayer. So congratulations, Enrico Slayer. Congratulations, Brett Pittler. Congratulations to everyone else. Let's let the players know that we are ready for Game 6.
Set for a not small game. This is very, very interesting. And we've said it's all about the format here and how punishing it is. So obviously we're gonna see Brett. And we knew we were going to see Jet.
Yep. Running back on Britain.
I like having like the 454th with the 22 to follow is always nice. Seeing that 64 Panzer Grenadier doesn't hurt either. That feels like a hand that can ramp effectively.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Killswitch is substantially less happy with his mulligan, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, this is the issue with his deck, is there's 2 1-cost cards, or 3 1-cost cards in the deck, and none of them really interact with board a whole lot, at least early in the game.
Yeah, this deck desperately wants a late game, and that is a thing.
Karis comes out, no 35Ts in the hand of Berto. The Befelswagen is not going to be able to get pulled.
Yep.
And
I like this though. Yeah. I'm kind of I like this. Berto's just playing what's in front of him the best way he knows how.
no, this is just those awkward points for an odd control deck. I mean,
Yeah.
just 2 op on the unit, 4 credits,
Yeah.
everything in your hand is 3.
Yeah. It just doesn't feel great, but you do have the chance to buff up those legions next turn. You're probably going to have one less of them, but
Whirlwind here is actually a pretty good top deck because there's a rationale for just slamming down an FW. That's perfectly reasonable. But if he wants to get
yeah,
rid of this
but
Karis,
yeah, I much prefer the verbal wind. I think that clear is actually quite big. This is an awkward position to be in if you're kill switch.
yeah, I think you just play the inner skilling because there's no tempo,
Yeah.
bounce, removal, suppress kind of thing. So this
Yeah,
is just
there's
gonna.
none of that nonsense to worry. Oh, the prototype coming into hand.
It's a turn off.
But
Does Berto trade? I mean,
do you want to just remove that ping risk?
you can't. You can take it out and then get another 20-second or an off clong. Um, the issue is you can't trade out while getting a Zerstorer on board, which is something you would love to do.
No, which you would really prefer to do, but you still got draw from the 22. I think I prefer the Alfklarung. Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of an incorrect ordering. Picking picking the countermeasure after it's a bit of a draw last situation. Taking the lightning strike, I really like this. You look at, you're like, my opponent's hand
Mm,
seems to suck. They're gonna want to draw cards. I know at least some of the cards in their hand already draw cards.
yeah.
Just 1 credit, 4 damage burn.
Yeah, is big. I think Killswitch needs to seriously consider when he's going to use that fortification and radar. Uh, like, as it gets the overdraw, which is not a terrible plan actually at the minute.
Yeah,
Killswitch needs any edge he can get right now.
and just passes it right back. And from Birder's perspective, I mean, it's turn 6, right? You just slam jet, go face for 6. There's a
I mean,
world
yeah,
for
I mean,
FW.
yeah, I was good, but the thing is, the overdraw at the Ice Gonzist. Now he's got 2 jets in hand, a store on board.
It is essentially impossible for Killswitch to not trigger Lightning Strike this turn.
Yep.
It's not something you can like reasonably play around. You need to draw card.
No, I
Every
think
card in your hand
yeah,
draws.
yeah. You kind of have to eat it. I would like to have seen fortification, but I suppose you can always play it at the end, see where you're sitting. But yeah, there's nothing you can. Uprising, however, is 2 damage currently.
3 damage, I believe, from Plan West and Karas.
Oh, Karas, yeah, I forgot Karas. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's 3 damage, which is it's. I like fortification here. I don't think you've got a choice. You know what turn you're on.
You also have intel on one of the 2 jets in hand, and there's a
Yeah,
shifted attack. This is what Berto just says. It just hits the gas. He puts 10 to the face this
yeah,
turn with the jet and prototype in hand.
and yeah, because he's got Zastora, he's got on board, which is never a bad presence to have. But yeah, I mean, shifting attack is just massive. It's gonna go for 9, 10. Yep. And
Yeah.
he's left kill switch kind of hanging here, saying, I don't know, like this is what 3 damage. There isn't really a way you can make it 4.
Killswitch needs to draw into some outs. It probably needs to be in the form of radar.
Yeah.
And even
I mean,
then, I think it's
you
just
kind of have to radar here, right? You need the HQ defense, and you need to find an out.
even if he does,
Really, any
if he hits radar into Plan West, he's I guess he's at 11 and he can trade out the 1/1, but he doesn't hit the Plan West.
West. Yeah.
And oh, the op cost on the Zerstorer, we can't see it, but the Zerstorer attacked. So the Zerstorer does have op cost, so if he trades out the 1/1, Wellington trades out the jet. This isn't
Yeah.
lethal from Berto's perspective.
It's his best chance of survival.
Also, a slight mistake from Berto. Berto using the jet that did not have intel. So that's
Well,
giving
on it, yeah,
Killswitch
I just noticed that myself.
extra information. But the
Um,
35T pickup, I mean, you just you sort of go wide. You can also get another countermeasure, throw some disruption in there.
yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, you don't have to really rush at this. Um,
Yeah,
because you are in a very strong position, but at the same time, you do have to be aware that you are dealing with someone who's Eberfelswagen. The beef wagon. You are dealing with someone who does have a late game.
yep. I think he's thinking about, do I trade into the I don't think he's going to trade, but also, deck, does he drop another 35T for 5 damage face?
Yeah.
Does he drop down the
Oh, Blitzkrieg is an interesting pickup.
war production is shifting
Yeah,
attack is the only order other than war production, and shifting attack is in hand.
And yeah, it's like this can only whiff.
Killswitch just walks straight into the from the deep. I mean, to be
That's
fair,
thing.
I think he was guaranteed dead this turn no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if he could fully clear the board, like, if
He
he
knows the intel. He's got intel on the jet prototype in hand.
and this is going to be our first game not to go to game 7. This is as good as over. We see the emote coming out. Killswitch knows what is up.
Amazing games, but yeah, it's the first time we're gonna see that 7th game.
And of course, Killswitch is just trying to do the math. Is there anything he can get? Or if it's going to hit a war production, which is unfortunate. He sees the shifting attack in hand, and that is going to be the surrender coming out. A 4-2 win for Berto Burrito. That is right. You heard us correctly. Somebody has won a game in less than 7, or won a match in less than 7.
Less than 7 games. Oh, that was extraordinary.
And that does mean Killswitch is guaranteed out. He won a match against Innocent Bubbles in the previous week, but unfortunately he lost 3-4 to Baron and then 2-4 to Berto Burrito. So that is going to be dropping him down at the bottom of our leaderboards, which I'm currently working on updating. But Berto, with the win, and not just the win, but the win by a 2-game margin, that is the points he needed.
Yeah. That's the big pickup here, is being able to get something other than just edging that 4-3 win. Any point that you can pick up beyond that is so huge right now. It puts him in a very solid position. And it shows you can bounce back. Berto was by no means out of this format. And he knew it. And he played brilliantly and played to his outs. I'm really quite excited. Is this... I suppose at some point we had to most likely break the 7 games streak. It didn't seem likely that it would go forever, but that's a whole... Sorry, Cosmo in chat, I will say that this is a shorter one than usual, because we have for the first time not gone the full 7 games, although we did give you a gainfully effective start in the stream. We did talk the decks through thoroughly, but...
Yes.
Also,
if you're looking at the Twitch broadcast length, that is because the stream went down in the middle of game 4.
Yeah. So we did not just finish 6 games in 35 minutes. This is not a blitz tournament. Do not adjust your set. J King's computer just hated him.
Yes, but here we go. Here's the updated scoreboard. And unfortunately, the scoreboard is sorted by alphabetical order. Innocent Bubbles is actually higher than Berto Burrito right now because the first tiebreaker is going to be head to head. So Berto Burrito and Innocent Bubbles both are at 1-1, but when the two players fought each other, Innocent Bubbles took it over Berto 4-3, meaning the current ranking is actually swapped. It is Baron and then Innocent Bubbles and then Berto, but Baron and Bubbles are playing tomorrow. And that means there is guaranteed Bubbles is going to go up or down. He will not end on 1. And if he loses, if Innocent Bubbles loses by any score, that means Berto is guaranteed into our finals. And if Innocent Bubbles wins, if he wins by 1 point, well, then he will go up. Like, if he wins in Game 7. So, a Game 7 win for Bubbles tomorrow will mean Bubbles at 3 points, Baron at 3, Berto at 1. However, if we see a 2-game victory, a 4-2 like we saw today, we will see Innocent Bubbles go up to 4 points and Baron go down to 2. If we see a 3 points, it will be Innocent Bubbles going up to 5 and Baron dropping down to 1. And Baron is also going to have winning tiebreakers over Berto. So at this point, either Baron wins and Berto's through, or Bubbles has to sweep Baron. If Bubbles is winning, it has to be by a sweep, and we could get a Bubbles-Berto finals with Baron dropping out at the very end. That seems incredibly unlikely.
Yeah, I mean, TLDR, don't be expecting that to be the result. It's possible, but it's statistically improbable, I will say.
Yes, so the match will be played tomorrow. The stream will be starting half an hour earlier than it did today at 2 p.m. Eastern. And if you're a Bubbles fan, come join, cheer on Bubbles. If you're a Baron fan, come join, cheer on Baron. If you're a Berto fan, come cheer on Baron. Because again, if you want to see Berto in the finals, Baron has to win, or Bubbles has to absolutely demolish Baron. And if you're a Killswitch fan, then, commiserations, share your love with Killswitch. He played well. He just came to all of these events, submitted 15 different decks, practiced the lineups. He tried his best. Unfortunately, it was just not enough. He was in it till the very end, but he's not making it to the grand finals. But if you want to see who will be in the grand finals, be sure to tune in tomorrow, where there will be more giveaways. And speaking of giveaways, it is time to pull a few more giveaways because, I was correct. It didn't go to Game 7 right at the end there. So we still have one big giveaway to hand out. So thank you very much to everybody for sticking around to the end of the stream through technical difficulties. The winner of the final 300 gold giveaway for this stream is Von Malachowski. So congratulations, Von Malachowski. You have won 300 gold. And if you won 300 gold, you didn't win it this giveaway, come by tomorrow, where there will be more 300 and 150 gold giveaways. And let's just count up how many more giveaways I have. Let's do another 2 150 gold giveaways. Just because you guys have been great sports sticking through. So King Javi 98, congratulations on 150 gold. And Laser Wars, congratulations on the 150 gold. And you know what? Let's pull one more, which will be Ahmed the Edgelord. So congratulations, Ahmed the Edgelord. That is a whole bunch of giveaways going out to you guys today. There will be a whole bunch of giveaways tomorrow. And, of course, you can expect there will be a whole bunch of giveaways in the grand finals. Dates to be announced. But, yeah, what a match we had today.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, props to everyone who played here. Like, Killswitch and Berto both playing incredibly well in a pressure cooker environment. Huge props to chat for sticking with us through all of the technical difficulties. That's not something, as we said, we can always rely on as well. It's always a blast, and this format has continued to turn out to be hyper competitive, which I know was the intent.
Yeah, this has been an absolute blast to watch. It's been an absolute blast to organize with the players. A huge round of applause to all of the players for sitting through, waiting for us to finish talking about decks, waiting between matches. I know they want to just jump straight into the next one, but they've all been good sports in helping this stream run. And, waiting for giveaways, to talk a bit about the previous game. And also a huge thank you to Bear for joining me in the casting booth once again. I know it's getting quite late over there in the UK, but you were here. You analyzed all the decks beforehand. You played all of the decks. You went above and beyond the amount of effort I would expect from a caster. So feel free to drop your plugs in Twitch chat if you haven't already. Guys, seriously, go check out Bear, and especially if you are newer to the game, you have a smaller collection, you're wondering how to hit Field Marshal for the first time, or just consistently hit Field Marshal if you've done it once already. Bear has a ton of content for you, so check him out on YouTube, but also follow him on Twitch, join his Discord. He will answer any of your questions you have there.
Yeah, I get to everything eventually. Time difference is everything, but I will say we are blessed to have an incredible Discord with some of the top players in the game. Come hang out with us there too, so you can get fantastic advice. It's been a legitimate pleasure. As ever, I hope to be back. I'm just gonna go hide in J King's closet and appear like tomorrow evening. I can appear behind him. It's like I'm just moving in because this is too enthralling. This has been seriously amazing. Do not miss out on tomorrow. I think this is going to be one of the most exciting weekends before the final because it's still all to play for, and I wouldn't want to be anyone. Baron right now. Lots of respect to you as well, because if I'm sitting in your position, I'm just like, okay. I just want to hang on to this right now.
Yeah, if you're Bear and you're now looking at it, it's like the only way if I win a single game, I'm through. But
yep.
One last thing I will mention before ending the stream is it's something that I mentioned at the very, very beginning. If you watched the very first video breaking down the format, it's not really been relevant until now. But the finals will be a best of 9, so 5 decks, no ban, best of 9. And if any player wins all 3 matches, if no player wins all 3 matches, if everybody drops at least one game, the finals, they'll just go in best of 9. But if a player wins all 3 matches, they get to bring 5 decks, they get to the finals, they see their opponent's decks, and then they get to pick one of their 5 decks to get a free win on at the start of the set. They get to go into the best of 9 up 1-0 already. As a reward for winning all 3. So that is what Baron is going to be thinking about. It's not simply just win a game to qualify for the finals, but if he's actually able to beat Bubbles and win all 3 of these first round-robin matches, it will also give him an advantage in the finals. So we have that to play for as well, even if he wins his first game. So yeah, there's 3 different possibilities of who will be in the finals. There's also a possibility of whether it will be a 0-0 or a 1-0 finals to start with. Yeah, all of that will be figured out tomorrow, so be sure to tune in 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you very much for everybody for watching. I will get the giveaway codes to you as soon as possible. The VOD, if you missed parts of it, will be up on my YouTube either by tomorrow morning or later tonight. And yeah, once again, big thanks to everybody for making this possible and for showing 1939 that this is a type of event that is possible and a type of event that they should continue to support. And 1939 has been a great support with the giveaway codes and the spectator mode. With them, this event would be essentially impossible to run. So big thanks to 1939 as well. And we will catch all of y'all in the next one. Thanks for watching.